Hey you, I'm the Queen of Shade. Welcome to the interview. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit my Cash App to support your favorite content creator. Now let's get to the interview. Mwah.
Let me tell you something. You're a bougie bitch and your mama is too. Said you're a bougie bitch and your mama is too. You're a bougie bitch and your mama is too. Said you're a bougie bitch and your mama is too.
Salutations, you fools. This is your fabulous leader, the Queen of Shade, coming at you with another very special presentation. This presentation is very, very special because 72 hours ago, my brother, baby brother, who is 4 years younger than I am, who lives with schizophrenia, tried to murder me and my grandmother in our own home. And this presentation is going to take you through those events and hopefully help you if you suffer from mental illness or if you know someone with mental illness to seek some guidance and some help. There is help out there. Now, when I thought about doing this presentation, everything is still fresh, still kind of in shock, dealing with it, my grandmother and I couldn't think of anyone else better to do this presentation with than my mother, who is the queen of queer rock and roll, Cydni Ambivalent. Now, Mama does a lot of things. In addition to her activism, her stage presence and performances, Mother has been active in doing crisis counseling, suicide counseling, and many other types of counseling over the phone. You know those lines that we always hear, oh, if you're in a domestic dispute or things like that, if you're in an abusive relationship, call this number. And none of us ever think to write the number down because we think it will never happen to us. Well, surprise, it can and it will. It happened to me. And Mother has the experience helping someone through this type of situation. So I couldn't and wouldn't and didn't want to speak to anyone else but her about this situation. Now, mind you, I do have a psychiatrist and a therapist. I speak to them on Monday of the coming week. But I wanted to speak to my mother first. Prepare yourself because this conversation is going to get very raw and very candid. It's needed for me to heal, for you to heal. And Mother is going to help us through it. So without further ado, I would like to reintroduce you because I've brought her to this platform many times now, and I will not stop. She will be here. She's a staple here. Allow me to reintroduce you to the queen of queer rock and roll with so many other titles behind her name, Mother Cydni Ambivalent.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Mama, I'm glad that you were able to do this because, I contacted you earlier today and, we usually have more time to put these things together, but I'm so thankful that you were like, listen, I can do it. I can do it today. We can do that. And I love that you said it's needed because it'll help me heal. I'm still kind of in shock, Mom.
I figured, and that's why the other day when I reached out to you, I hadn't bothered you for quite some time at that point, but something way down in here told me that you had gone through something heavy And I'm not really active on social media. When I'm on, I'm on. When I'm off, I'm off. And I did see that you were sending me things, and lots of people sending me things, but I didn't have the time to really buckle down and look at them.
Mhm.
And just this morning, something told me maybe you should check in. Maybe you should check in. And I was going to, but as I had told you, I had my business endeavors and all of that. And then when you reached out to me and you asked, are you going to be free around sometime this evening? You goddamn right, I'm going to be free sometime this evening
Yeah.
to help you be free sometime this evening. And that's why we're here. And we will sit in these chairs, in this room, with this pack of cigarettes on this table as long as we need to until you feel better.
I guess what I have to do now is start at the beginning. About a year ago, my baby brother, whom had been there for me in times past when I was not medicated and when I unmedicated and when I didn't have therapy and psychiatrists and things like that. It goes back to 2005 after Paris came back a wreck. My baby brother was the one who was my tower of strength. I had stayed with a friend and slept on her couch for about a year. I was afraid to go outside. I was afraid to live. I was afraid to move and be. I was afraid to rejoin the human race. I was so embarrassed about Paris and the way that it ended because it started on such a high note. And it ended with me in the hospital for 2 months, embarrassingly, remanded to the hospital by the authorities because I just flipped out in public and they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know if I was American. It was a lot at that time. And then the US Embassy put up the money for me to come home. And when I came home, I stayed with a friend of mine, a male friend of mine. And he didn't even, you could tell he was kind of like, okay, I know something's wrong with you. We didn't really discuss what had happened, but I kind of, what people don't understand about mental illness and certain types, bipolar disorder and things like that, was I would roam the streets. I would just get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just walk. And that was very dangerous, especially for someone of beauty, and especially roaming the hood because, before that, before Paris, my family had put me out of the suburbs. So I was back on the streets of North Philadelphia, which is like the Badlands of Philadelphia. So I'm roaming 4 o'clock in the morning, beautiful like this, out of my mind, basically, talking to myself, singing aloud, boisterous, anything could happen to me. So one thing that I am so grateful about is that every time I ever got like that in my life, because I had many manic episodes like that before Paris, in college, I always walked all night, barefoot, mind you, because one thing about bipolar disorder is we tend to come out of our clothes. So I'd be half naked, barefoot. At this time, at 2005 going into 2006, it was the winter time. So I'm walking the streets, kind of out of my mind, out of control, barefoot in the snow. But one thing that allowed me to, or that always happened, is somehow I would walk right into a hospital. I would walk right into an emergency room. It didn't matter where I was in the city. I would always end up in a hospital emergency room. And they would ask me, ma'am, are you okay? Because, I had long hair. Ma'am, are you all right? Or do you need help? And I would flip out very embarrassingly in the emergency room, and then they would realize something was wrong and they'd take me back immediately. And I would usually be transferred from the emergency room to the psych ward, be it ambulance by ambulance or things like that. And that was my life for many years. And it was difficult because my family, who had always been my rock, you know, we were very religious and things like that. They came to my rescue when I was doing that in college, 8 hours from home near the Pittsburgh area, 7 hours. And you know, it was very embarrassing. Everybody in college is, you know, I've never been able to hide. I've always been a star. I've always been a light. So everybody knew me. Everybody knew my name. Everybody knew what I could do. And very embarrassingly, I flip out and it just would be very embarrassing. So when I got back from Paris, after being in the hospital for 2 months, I flip out here, I'm walking in the snow, no shoes on, going through and crying profusely, like just behavioral, just crying about my life and trauma, social traumas, family traumas. They put me out, I'm homeless. You know, not really sure if I was going to survive. My brother, he rescued me. I was on a friend's couch. And he called me and he said, bro, I got to get out of here, because he was 4 years under me. So he said, I got to get out of this house. You know how it is. We endured the trauma together, and he's not gay, but we endured the trauma of, you know, family members being violent and abusive and, you know, really doing horrific things to us while we were trying to grow up. So he said, bro, I know you're on the couch. Let's get an apartment together. And for someone that was out of commission for about a year, because usually when I would have manic episodes, I would be out of commission, for about a year. And it would take me literally a year to regain the knowledge of who I was and my confidence and my lose the fear of going outside and that fear of wanting to hide and never show my face again in polite society because of the embarrassing way that I left polite society. He said, bro, let's get an apartment together. And I love my brother. I always loved my brother. It somehow would snap me out of what I was going through, and I would start all over. I immediately got a job. I went and I went to, and it wasn't a regular job, I was a temp data entry. I learned how to type before I left high school. That was one thing that I took the elective course because I always knew I needed to be able to type, whereas many people couldn't, in case I needed, you know, to do data entry and things like that. So I was one of those things I picked up before I left high school, and it came in handy as an adult. So I was at a temp agency. They took me, and I was with this temp agency before I left for Paris. And they sent me to a corporate office of Pet Boys. I was part of their special orders group, about like 6 or 7 of us. So I would order like lifts and all these big cranes and things that you see for companies. And I left, went to Paris, supposed to be going to make it, come back, embarrassingly hide for a year. And then the temp agency sent me right back to that job. And I got hired. They actually bought out my contract because I was such a good worker. I pick up things pretty quickly. So I became full-time there, and it allowed me to have a steady income. And my brother was my rock. Now, what people don't understand is that after Paris, the embassy had loaned me $1,500 to give me a passport, to get me home. They gave me money so that when I got off the plane, I could get to wherever I needed. Philadelphia is large. I could get to wherever I needed, buy food, do what I need to do. But I had to pay that back, and I wasn't even aware of that. It wasn't until my brother and I got an apartment and I got a letter in the mail that said, welcome back home, basically. You owe us $1,700. And until you pay us, you're not going to be able to use your passport and travel anywhere, go anywhere. And the thing about it was I fell in love with France. I left my soul and my heart there. So I knew I wanted to return, and I had spoken to a very famous photographer who died last year, Ernest Collins. He kind of started my career in France. And he always told me, because I spoke to him after I got home and after a year of disappearance and, you know, all of that happened. I called Paris and he said, listen, get yourself together. Paris will always be here. You can always come back. And with those words, when they told me, you're not going to be able to get your passport till you pay the $1,700, my brother, whom we had an agreement to go half on all the bills and all the rent and everything, he allowed me to not go half with everything because he worked in restaurants and things like that. He paid all the bills while I paid back the $1,700 so that I could get my passport hold lifted and be able to travel to Europe and be able to go do it again. Now that was 17 years ago. I haven't been to Paris in 17 years. It has taken me that long to get my mental health under control, get my business sense together, learn the business, the nuts and the bolts. So during that time, I was estranged from my brother because the last time I saw him, we had moved from that apartment to another apartment near my job. And it was like clockwork. Every 2 years, I would just start being manic and the signs would show. And I would always quit my job before they could recognize that there was something mentally wrong. I would see you go, things like that. So when I quit my job, I was unable to pay with my brother for half of the rent and didn't know what was wrong really with me. So we had never had that conversation. Mental illness is just not something we spoke about in a Black home. And he did know that something happened at college and that I was home. So that was all he knew, but he had never seen it for himself. So we split and I went into the hospital and then got out. And then that's when I needed a job and didn't know what to do. We were losing our apartment. We had like 20 days to get out. And he was very angry with me and he got his stuff and he vacated early because he had a job. He knew what he was doing and he was mad with me. And it was like, bro, you broke this. You're the reason why we don't have, why we can't stay here. So he was always my rock. And it's emotional. I was in the news, looking at the newspaper one day, and that was the day that I realized I was going to do phone sex. Could label when they were going to get the job as a phone sex operator. So I worked 24/7. The call center was literally open. What was so crazy is I made full-time money, but it really was a part-time job. So that tells you how hard I worked. I made literally full-time money. So my brother, he came to stay with me for a while. And this was the first time that I realized my brother had mental illness. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was wrong because my neighbors were like, yeah, while you're gone at work, your brother, his name is Raymond. So they'd be like, yeah, Ray, he sits with the back. I had this patio. So they were like, he sits with the back door patio open all night, smoking cigarettes, cursing and drinking. There were bottles, like Mom, when I tell you, my brother was an alcoholic. There were bottles littered all over that room that I let him stay in. And that was the first time, I didn't believe my neighbors. But one night I came home from work and I heard for myself and I confronted him. And it was like, dude, what's wrong with you? And my thing is, he had always been my pillar. So I'm working, getting myself together, and now he's breaking down. And I didn't really know what to do for him because I really didn't know what to do for myself. I hadn't gotten help at that time. I would just go in the hospital, they patch me up, they give me some medicine, take this. And as soon as I felt better, I stopped taking the medicine. I didn't really know much about mental illness, much about what I had. The term bipolar was floating around. I didn't know what that was, never grew up with that, anything. So that was the first time I recognized that my brother had something wrong with him. And what I did was I helped him get his own apartment because it was kind of like I had the front of my house, he had the back of my house, and we just kind of stayed apart. So it was like, for me, out of sight was out of mind. I didn't know how to help him. He didn't really want help. He wasn't violent though. with me especially. He never was violent with me. So I was like, at the urging of my neighbors, because my neighbors had young children, they had to go to school. They were in, this was Center City, so this was a very posh area. The only way I was even able to get into this area was the money I made and connections. I knew the president of the board for like a HUD situation, community housing, so you could get in for a pretty cheap rate. And she helped me get in there. And it was really a really beautiful part of town. And, she was complaining, my kids can't come downstairs to this. They can't, deal with this. He's right under their windows. And so I helped him get an apartment in Darby, which is another part, Upper Darby, which is a part of Philadelphia. That's not really Philadelphia. It's like a suburb right outside of Philly, right outside of West Philadelphia. And I put my brother there. And he literally was there the 15 years that I've been here, because I shortly after that started that cycle again, quit my job, go into the hospital. It was really bad because I went into the hospital literally 2 weeks apart, came out of the hospital and then had to go right back in. And I knew it was getting bad because I'd never had manic episodes that close together, being bipolar myself. And it was just really bad. And my grandmother stepped in. And I mean, that was when I was on YouTube. I was first making a real name for myself. Everybody was like, what's wrong with him? Like, everybody's asking, people that care about me through the computer screen. They're like, what's going on? I met a producer from another country and we're working together. And he's like, what's going on? And that was the first time that, because I didn't want to lose him, I said, I'm bipolar. So that was the first time I made it known to someone else. Fast forward, I come here to my grandmother's house. I've been here 15 years. I haven't really seen my brother in 15 years. We never really kept in touch, but he would call me every now and then. And he would say to me, like, you're my big bro. I just need to hear your voice. I'm lonely, I'm sad. I knew that he was an alcoholic. He would talk to me about killing himself. He would talk to me about the voices. He would call me scared and say, the voices are telling me to kill myself. And in a situation like that, while I'm still trying to get myself together, I was fresh in therapy. I didn't really know what to tell him. My wit, that natural wit that I have as a Libra, which you have as well as a Libra, would kick in. And I literally gave my brother one piece of information that kind of kept him while I was able to go ahead and build myself, and he was able to maintain where he was. I told him, I said, listen here, you tell those voices in your head that if you die, they die too. And you heard him pause. And from that moment on, my brother was able to regain his composure and work his job. And he worked for a beer distributor. He was still an alcoholic, but he was a functioning alcoholic for 15 years. 15 years, functioning alcoholic. And he would tell me, like, I remember towards the end, before he came here, like, I didn't even know my brother. We didn't even talk. And that's what people need to understand. 4 children can grow up in the same Black household and not know each other, have the same trauma and interpret it 4 different ways and not know each other, because all of us were in survival mode. So in survival mode, you don't give a fuck about nobody else but yourself. And we weren't closely knit. Our family wasn't closely knit. Family wasn't supportive. They never came to each other's rescue. And the time that we spent growing up, it was like babysitting. They babysat us. There were a lot of things we grew up without, we didn't have. It was like until when we came of age, boom, they put us all out. It wasn't just me and me being gay. They put my brothers out. They put my sisters out at 16. Like they kicked everybody out. So I remember him calling me. And I said to him, like, hey, what's going on? I haven't heard from you in a while. And he's like, yeah, you know, he was doing well for a while. He's like, hey, I'm in the Army. I'm like, what? You in the Army? He's like, yeah, I'm in the Army. Now, by this time, I knew that my brother was schizophrenic. We had discussed it. So I'm thinking, how did you pass the exam, the psych eval, to get into the Army? But one thing about my brother, one thing about us all, is we learned very early from my family how to mask our pain. We learned that from our family. I had to go to 4 years, 2 years of middle school and 4 years of high school, masking my pain. I learned how to be fully functional and operative and not be and have nobody know anything about what was going on behind closed doors. I learned how to hide from my family. And when I decided to get myself together and went into therapy, the first thing I stripped, and what was stripped from me, was my mask. So I asked my brother, I said, you're in the Army? He said, and this is the thing, like, I didn't talk to him for so long. I was here. I'm building my brand. I'm successful. I'm having therapy. I'm moving up. And he had already passed boot camp before he even called me. He was already, that's like 6 weeks. He had already done the boot camp. He was in AIT at this time, where they pick and choose a skill and things like that. And my brother is very intelligent. He's a Gemini. What he is a moving encyclopedia. And what he does is he feels and finds comfort in everyone else around him being of lesser intelligence. He loves to assert himself and be superior mentally wise. But it never worked with me because I was the prodigy in the family. I'm the one, nobody taught me how to do this. I learned every single piece of my business for myself, by myself. I am self-made. So when he would come at me with big words and things like this, there were times I didn't even understand what he was saying, but my intellect could pick up on how he used it in a sentence, and I knew exactly what the word meant, and I could answer the question. And my brother could never stump me. So he never really tried me. One thing he also said about me, he always called me the air hustler. And I never understood what that meant. And I asked him one day, I said, well, why do you call me the air hustler? He said, because you are the only person I know in my life that can have nothing and pull a miracle out of thin air. He was like, bro, you make it happen. And not just for yourself, for everyone that's connected to you. So we're talking. He's in the military and he's in AIT. And I'm like, wow. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, my baby brother's safe. He getting himself together. If anything goes wrong, especially mentally wise, they're gonna see it and fix it. It'll be all right. And I hung up. This brings us up to about a year ago. December, I get a call from my brother. And he's like, my dad died. Now, my brother never really knew his father. And it wasn't because his father didn't want to be in his life. His father did. His father had, I think, a 3rd or 4th grade education. He was also an alcoholic, but he was a hard worker. He worked in like factories and things like that. He actually married my mother. My father didn't marry my mother, but he fathered me and my sister right under me, we were the two kids from there. It wasn't even a union, because right after my sister was born, my mother got rid of him, and she met my brother's father and married him and had my brother and my youngest sister. So they never really, he wasn't even really allowed to see his father or have a relationship with his father, because this side of the family didn't want that to happen. So him being a child, he didn't get a say in whether or not he could see his father. They kind of were like, well, no, you're not giving any money. So unless you're giving any money, you don't get to see your children. And that was kind of shitty, because his father was a hard worker, but he barely made ends meet. But this side of the family was so monetarily driven. Money destroyed this side of the family, actually. And none of them have it to this day. None of them. But he calls me about a year ago, and he's in the Army, and he's like, my dad died. He didn't really, like I said, no relationship with his father. But when his father died, and he was like angry with his father. It's like being angry with your father, but not really being angry with your father. He wanted to know his dad, but he was being a hard ass, because his objective was to make something of himself and then go back, and his father have to cower down to him because he's a man. He made himself. So that's what he was in the process of doing. And his father died. And I remember him losing his shit on the phone with me. And I'm like, Raymond, you need to go to the medical department. You need to be seen. You need to, talk to somebody. Because I had never seen him like that. It had been, like I said, 15 years since I laid eyes on him. So, next thing I know, the arrangements for his father's funeral had to be made. And because he was his father's only son and eldest son, they left it to him to make the funeral arrangements. My sister, youngest sister, his full sister, because he's my half brother, but we were raised together, so I never treated him like a half brother. He was my brother. I have another brother with my father who I treat like a half brother, because it just, his dynamic and my dynamic, we tried and it just didn't work, but whatever. So he was trying to make funeral arrangements for his father from Virginia. And his father's body was decaying in the morgue because it had been there for a month. He died somewhere around Christmas. And this was somewhere around the 17th, 18th, 19th of January. So my youngest sister, whom got a bad rap, everybody always in the family tried to treat her like she was dense and didn't know what she was talking about, or that she was stupid or dumber than dishwater, and everybody treated her like that, me included. It was like we never listened to anything she said and things like that. She was the one trying to be in, like, stand in proxy while my brother was away. And she was doing a bad job. So my brother called my grandmother and borrowed $1,600 from her to have his father cremated. It wasn't what he wanted to do. And this was the thing. His father had paid for a burial plot next to his wife. And something happened with the insurance policy that they weren't able to get the money to bury him. Something happened. I forget what it was, but he was dealing with this all from AIT, trying to, fulfill his duties on the phone late at night. He's supposed to be sleeping in the barracks, and he's trying to figure out how to get this done. And he's trying to coordinate with my sister. My sister is not as intelligent as him. Many people aren't. So he's looking at her like, what the fuck? Like, get it right. Like, it's not rocket science, but he's so much more advanced. So she folded under the pressure. So he borrowed $1,600 from my grandmother and promised to pay her double, because he was, at that time, he's in the military. He's working. He's like, I need to get my father cremated, and I will pay you back double just to make this go away. So he gets his father cremated, and we think it's over. Well, it wasn't. The insurance money. The wife's family wanted the insurance money. But the way that the money was set up is it was supposed to go to my brother and my sister, youngest sister. But what happens is there were certain legal documents that they had to go to a Philadelphia court, obtain, and show the insurance company so that something like $25,000 or $30,000 could be released to them. Well, my sister tried to spearhead that. And he's like trying to tell her what to do, you know, this is that and the other. And she failed. So he was very angry about that. They weren't able to get the money released. They were telling him he would have to, even at court, they told her the eldest child has to come and do this. You're the youngest child. You can't do this without him. He's the next in line. He's the executor. So my brother's in Virginia. And they had deadlines. That was the thing, you know, all of this. Well, if we're gonna pay you this money, you got to do it by this time. You got to do it by that time. So he's away. It sparks a feud between my sister and my brother. And he's trying to make it go away. But she's somewhere struggling and wants all of the money, wants him to relinquish his half of the money. Just sign this. And, you know, you have money. You don't need it. I need it for my kids, et cetera, et cetera. So he's thinking about just letting it go. It sparks a feud. My sister, out of spite, starts calling the base, speaking to his superior officers and trying to get him in trouble, sending him text messages. Now, this is all over money. Sending text messages. I'm going to speak to the heads, your captains and lieutenants. I'm going to get you put out of the army since you want to play hardball, et cetera, et cetera. She was very maniacal. I remember just a thought. When she was in elementary school, she got the principal of her elementary school. Now, this is the suburbs, this is white folk. She got this white principal fired because she lied and said she was molested by a student on the playground, and that the principal, she went to the principal and he hushed her and told her not to tell. Literally, and I mean mental illnesses in my family. She was very sociopathic. She didn't care about anybody but herself. So the principal was cleared, but because of his reputation, he resigned. She ruined this man's life. The authorities said, had she been 1 year older, they would have prosecuted her and put her away for that. So now, fast forward to my brother and her, she's doing all of these maniacal things to win this money, ruining his life. So he's already dealing with the death of his father. Now he's dealing with the confrontation with his sister. Then he's dealing with the fact that he's older than most of the children or the kids or young people in his, in his AIT with him in the Army. He's considered the old man at like 35. So my brother was being bullied in the Army already. On top of the things that they did in the morning, the drills, the drop down and give me 50 and this, that, and the other. So my brother is having all kinds of stress. Next thing you know, the Army puts him out. Not an honorable discharge, not a dishonorable discharge. They just fast-tracked him out and dropped him back in Philadelphia with a duffel bag and told him, don't hate the Army. So that led me to believe, if you telling him not to hate the Army, y'all did something y'all shouldn't have done. And you don't want him to retaliate once he's in a better mind headspace. So I didn't even know he was here in the city. He was staying with someone he met while he was working, because he worked at a beer distributor for 10 years. He was assistant manager at a beer distributor while he's an alcoholic, but he worked for a beer distributor. And my brother, that's one thing about him and I, my brother worked every day, sick or well, every day. He never missed a day. For him and I both, work is what centered us. Our lives, we had no lives outside of our work. Everything else took a backseat, because for these mental illnesses, work was the only thing that kept us grounded and steady. That's why I work the way that I do. So he had been here for about a month, and he kind of just, I thought he was laying low. He calls and he's like, bro. I'm like, what's up? He's like, I need some money. He's like, because I was staying with a friend of mine. The friend was gay, an older gay man. My brother's a young heterosexual man. The gay man, of course, because gays get things, had a house full of, he was fine. He was coming on to my brother. My brother wanted no parts of that. So the friend threw him out on the street, thinking, oh, you ain't got nowhere else to go. So he calls me and he's like, bro, I need some money. I need some real money. I know I owe Nana money, but I need some money because I don't have nowhere to go. So I'm like, okay, no problem. So I sent him about $1,000. And I'm like, this should help you, because he's still getting paid. They're still sending him checks, pay from the Army. So I'm like, hey, you can get an apartment, you can get a job, you can go get your old job back. You're back in the city, you're back in Upper Darby where you were, you got all your connections, do what you got to do. So I send the money. How did he wind up here? So he's in the Airbnb. No. So he gets the money, but he's got to eat, he's got to live, he's got to take care of himself, he's got to wash, he's got to clean. And on top of schizophrenia, he's very OCD, very much so. And then being in the Army, it made it even worse. He's very regimented. So my grandmother and the family knew that he was schizophrenic, and he had burned all the bridges with everybody, because being in their house, they had all seen what he could be. I was yet to experience it. So they all saw what he could be. I'd never heard of him being violent with anyone. I just had heard of him being condescending and them getting upset because, oh, Raymond thinks he, is smarter than me. So of course, instead of getting him real help, what do? Oh, well, the streets will teach you. So they throw him out. So he comes here against my grandmother's approval. She's like, I really don't want Raymond in my house. I'm thinking, why? This is my brother. I got the money. I'm working. I can help him. And if he's here, I can watch him. I can help him get help. This is what I'm thinking. This is what's going through my mind. So she's like, she gives me the shot. She doesn't really want to, but she allows him to come here. He comes here. He has money. We don't have much space in this house. My nephews are downstairs. My grandmother's downstairs. 2 rooms up here. He hadn't moved into her room yet. She has a lot of things. I'm not gonna say hoarder, but I'm working on her. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of things in this house and I'm throwing things out daily. She don't know, but I'm throwing things out daily. Because now it's just us 2 and I'll be damned. But he comes here and he's independent. He's a grown man. I'm a grown man. I have very limited space, but all I could offer him was my floor. It was all I could offer him, my floor. House was so full of people. It always was that way. So I'm saying to my grandmother, I'll take the responsibility. You ain't gonna have to do nothing. I'll take the responsibility. He's gonna be in my room with me. Now, mind you, she like, I don't know how that's gonna work because you work in your room. So I don't know how this is going. She telling me, I don't know how this is gonna work. How you work in your room. Your room is already got shit everywhere. You got wigs and dresses and your normal clothes and everything. We need to move. And I'm like, I know. So I bring him here. And it was the first time that I got to see his psychosis in motion. The whiskey, downing literally the huge bottles of the expensive whiskey. He didn't, my brother, that's one thing about how he was able to maintain longevity. He didn't drink the tacky shit, the bad, the little shit. He drank expensive distilled liquor so that it was of a higher quality. So he didn't have to drink as much, but it could get the job done quicker, et cetera, et cetera. But I watched him down bottles of like imported like whiskey from Ireland. And he knew about all of these things. He was a connoisseur, so he knew. And I'm looking at him and I'm just watching him go through it. And I'm thinking, he just needs love. He just needs space. He needs an opportunity to decompress. So I was in this room with him while he's sitting there going through his psychosis. I'm watching him talk to the different voices on a regular. I'm watching him say things like, I could kill everybody in the house. And, I am the absolute. And he acted like he was a god. And I'm listening. And my attitude was, I was trying to do what my grandmother did for me. I don't have schizophrenia, so I don't have multiple voices. When she would sit with me, I was just crying about my life and how embarrassed I felt. And I would cry. I cried for 2 years. The first 2 years I was here, I sat at the bottom of her bed and cried. And she told me, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And it did. But I watched him go through the psychosis and talk to the point where even as he spoke and switched personalities and voices, his voice changed. So my grandmother got nervous, scared. She was like, look, BJ, I don't know what's going on up there. We started arguing, him and I, because I would work all day. He's out and I would put him in the hallway while I worked. And see, people never know what your favorite content creators are going through. So, they just think and all they demand is more. Now, mind you, I'm handling him, and how I'm paying for it is my mentees. I'm mentoring people, not making much money from anywhere else. So I'm handling him, handling me, got to have good hair, got to have good wigs, got to have new clothes. I'm doing all of this. So my grandmother's like, BJ, he got to go. He got to go. Something bad gonna happen. And my attitude was, let me handle him. Let me handle him. I got him. He'll never turn on me. I'm his brother. So finally, we start arguing. No physicality, because me and my brother, we would argue, but we always argued verbally. There was never, like, literally, I would, like, there was times when we argued and my nephews would come and they're tall, they're 6'2", they're his height. They would want to jump in. And I literally would be arguing with my brother, literally pushing our chests against each other. And I'd be pushing my nephews away because I'm like, I got this. I know how to handle this because this was what we did. So I'm fighting with him, telling him, bro, you need some therapy. You need to go to a hospital. Something's wrong. They're wanting to beat his ass because they're scared. My grandmother's scared. And they're like, so it's not working. So I borrowed money and put him in another Airbnb. And I'm thinking, out of sight, out of mind. He'll get a job. He'll do what he got to do, because one thing about him is he always kept a job. So I knew he would survive. He would go through it. He could go through it. He would be all right, because my brother never needed the help of my family to do anything. And I always admired him for that, because it was like, you're a schizophrenic and I'm bipolar, and I couldn't even do what he did on his own as far as taking care of himself. He always took care of himself. And I didn't understand how he could work. And I mean, he worked a full-time gig. And I was just like, he would tell me I was strong. And I would tell him, no, you're stronger. And he would say, no, you're stronger, because I'm an alcoholic. I got to do all of these things to get me through. You are cold turkey in this. You are facing your illness. You're going to therapy. You're doing all these things. And I would be like, well, it still doesn't make me as good as you, because I live in Nana's house. And he would be like, bro, you live where you have to live. That was his attitude. That still doesn't take away from who you are and how strong you are. So we would have these kind of conversations. So he leaves. I borrow money. He leaves. About 2 weeks go by and he calls me hysterically. And he's like, yo, they throwing me out of the Airbnb. Now, from the way that he's sounding, I'm thinking, he tells me, I'm like, well, where did you get the Airbnb? He's like, North Philly, because it was cheap. And I'm like, why would you get an Airbnb in North Philadelphia? This is the hood. Like, are you crazy? Like, you should have went somewhere else. You should have went back out to Upper Darby. So I'm mad with him. I'm like, you should have went back out to Upper Darby, where you were. Those were your stomping grounds. It's suburbia. Yes, there are Black people out there, but they not like Philly Blacks. So I'm like, you need to be out there. So he's screaming, yo, they taking my shit. And my brother had expensive shit. He loved expensive. He left a whole Mac Mini computer here. And I'm just like, like he just, So he's like, they robbing me. And I'm like, oh my God. So I jump in the car with my grandmother and I'm like, we got to go down there. We got to go get him. She like, BJ, I'm like, we got to go get him. I got to help him. He's in crisis. I got to help him, because he had always been there for me. So we get there. The police are already on the scene, 2 of them. My brother is outside in the middle of the street, no shirt, he's thin, no shirt, no shoes. I had seen this before in me. So no shirt, no shoes. The Airbnb bagged up all his stuff in trash bags and threw it out the front door. So I tell him, give the cops the phone. He gave the cops the phone. I say, listen, my name is Bjorn Dufault. This is my brother, Raymond. I'm on my way to pick him up now. Please do not try to detain him. He needs help. He needs psychological help. He's schizophrenic. I tell them. So they're like, all right, but you need to hurry up and get here. So we racing from the Northeast all the way down to North Philadelphia. We get there. He's irate. While he's irate doing what he's doing in the middle of the street, I'm grabbing all his shit in the duffel bags and everything, throwing it in the back of the Jeep. And the cops are telling me, it's a good thing you got here. So, but your brother needs psychological help. And I'm like, I know. It's kind of like the woman who makes excuses for her rude and abusive husband when they're in public. It's like, no, it's okay. I got this. No, I don't need you to get involved. I'm in that role. I was in that role. So we get him. We bring him back to this house, to my floor. It's worse. It's worse. He is not yet violent, but irate. And I'm just like, so we're arguing, and I'm like, dude, stop acting crazy. Like, you gotta calm down. We got neighbors. Everybody in this house don't want you here. I'm going on a limb here because this ain't my shit. So I'm like, I got you here. Like, that was the thing. Like, my family doesn't treat my brother like family. He's the child that nobody wants. They did it with me, but hey, I got all this value now. So everybody, my sisters, everybody I don't talk to want to claim me. Oh, I know the Queen of Shade. The Queen of Shade is my nephew. Oh, the Queen of Shade is my brother, my sister, you know? So him, he's a middle child. So they like, out of sight, out of mind. So we don't get into physical altercations, but we're arguing so much that it's not good. So I put him out. I'm like, listen, dude, you're going to have to find somewhere to go. So without even really asking, he scouts out my grandmother's room. She's got a lot of stuff in there, but there's room in there. So he, with his OCD, he starts cleaning it up. He organizes it. It's great. Like literally now, all I have to do is pay the movers because everything's boxed and ready to go in that room. She don't know it's going to the Goodwill, but she don't watch these, so it's good. That's going to it's too much stuff. It ain't going to what house? Who house? My house? No. So yeah. So things get better because now he has a space of his own with a door he can shut. So I'm able to regain my composure, work. He doesn't really come out. He comes out late at night. And then we'll go downstairs, cook, and then come back upstairs, and wouldn't see him for like 2-3 days. That was like the cycle. So my grandmother's mad with me because I'm using my extra money that I need to feed myself with. I'm feeding my brother. And she's like, you're working round the clock making this content and you are not eating. And I'm like, well, I don't eat anyway when I'm working. She's like, but you're going to make yourself sick. You need to take care of yourself. So I'm like, okay. So she steps up and is giving me money while I'm giving him money to get food. So the screaming, cursing, multiple personality conversations, they continue the whole year, all of last year. I'm not afraid. I never was afraid. I never had a reason to be afraid. My brother would always stand down when it came to me. So there was no reason for me to feel threatened or on edge. My grandmother, on the other hand, my nephews, on the other hand, are like, dude, what the fuck? He got to go. My neighbors work in the field of health and mental health. So they're watching him. See, I don't know what's going on. I'm working. So there's a big bay window in that room. He would throw the curtains open, pull the Venetian blinds up, and literally the windows open, the lights on. He's walking back and forth in the room half naked in just his underwear, cursing and going through his mania and his psychosis. My neighbors said to me, she was like, yo, you need to get your brother some help. Not only is he screaming at all hours of the morning and stuff like this, and everybody around us hears this, but something's going to happen. He's getting worse. He's getting worse. And I'm like, all right. And I'm trying to talk to him like, Ray, you got to go get help. I am taking this position with him because I know no one can force you to get help. You have to do it yourself. Even in the state of Pennsylvania, you can't even 302 anyone anymore. And 302 is like remanding them to a psych ward. You can't do that anymore here. They don't allow it. So what happens is you try to 302 someone, they have to come out and evaluate them. They ask them a whole bunch of questions and then they don't take them. They don't take them because the person is able to answer their questions in a calmly, orderly fashion. So you can't just say, oh, somebody's crazy. They frown upon that in Pennsylvania. You can't say somebody's crazy. They give them every single loophole and opportunity to prove that they're crazy or not crazy. So I want to say, now he's going through it. And there were instances where my grandmother had to speak to him and he was irate with her. And she would be speaking to him because she's like, BJ, he has gallon jugs of urine sitting all in the room, all around the room. The bathroom is right there. He's peeing in jugs. The room smells of urine because all of these jugs of urine are everywhere. I can't have him living like that in my house. So she would tell him, Raymond, you can't pee in no bottles. You need to take and go to the bathroom and pee. But what he would do is, in his drunkenness, he would relieve himself and then put the jug up to the side and pass out. That was him every night. I wouldn't even bother him because he had his own space. And I was thinking, he's going to come out of it. He's going to come out of it. He's going to come out of it, because I knew, even with me, you cannot, and that's what people need to understand that are even listening. The cops told me when I called, there is no law against him being delusional. There is no law against him refusing treatment. There is no law against him refusing medicine. It's his choice. We will not try to force him to do these things. So they're like, basically, it's up to him. So about a month ago, now mind you, the whole time my grandmother can't sleep. She can't sleep. He's banging up here, doing different things. And I go in there and I'm like, Ray, you gotta calm down. Like, he would calm down. For me, he would calm down. But it would be short-lived because he's going through his psychosis. So I couldn't even bring up my sister, because if I did, I watched it set him off. That bitch, she betrayed me. She got, she did this. She ruined my life. I'm a killer. Like, and I'm like, Ray, you can't kill her. You can't kill her. I would say that you can't kill her. I'm not taking him seriously, which is my fault and my problem. And I have to own that. I'm not taking him seriously. But also, what option did I have anytime the cops are telling me there's nothing we can do? It's not against the law for him to be loud. It's not against the law for him to be what he is. He has to be this. And I'm just like, wow, these laws have changed, because when I was younger, y'all 302 the shit out of me. I was remanded to hospital for 2 and 3 months. And I wasn't even doing half of what he's doing. I'm walking the streets, minding my business, crying and singing. And they like, oh, you're 302. You in this hospital. We're not letting you go for 60 days. We're not letting you go for 90 days. And I'm like, oh, stuck. So my grandmother is upset because in the stuff that she buys like brand new pots and pans and silverware and glasses and things, and they're in boxes, they've never been used, and hoarder, we're just gonna say that. So it's like a high. She buys one thing, she has that high when it comes. Then the high dissipates, then she got to buy something else and to feel that high again. People don't understand that this is still mental illness. Mental illness runs in my family. So she's trying to medicate herself with things. So one night, and I mean, she had been telling me the whole time he was here, he's using new pots and pans, and he didn't even ask me. And she would say that he didn't ask me. And I'm like, Nana, we're not using it. Just leave him alone. Leave him alone. Let him get himself together. So me and her were arguing. Let him get himself together. Me and her are going back and forth. And I'm fighting and defending him. And I'm like, so then I got to a point where I'm like, well, if you have a problem with him, stop running to me. Tell him. Because we got into a very violent argument where I hit a box and it flew across the room. And that was the first time I had ever done that. And when I did that, arguing with my grandmother, I knew to myself, that was my signal. Okay, this is getting out of hand. Y'all got to stop this. Because I had never had to hit something to dispel my anger and animosity in an argument with my grandmother, whom I love. So I knew, okay, you getting out of control because now you hitting shit and breaking shit. No. So I pulled back, but I'm able to reel myself in. So I reeled myself in, but she's upset with him using things. And then she's upset because she doesn't sleep, because he would come down 2 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, full on cooking, steak, ribs, whatever, full on cooking, not no little bit of cooking. And he went and got assistance from the state. So he had like SNAP benefits that allowed him to buy food. So he was eating, and now mind you, he ain't paying no rent, nothing like that. He's here to get better, but he's eating the best, like steaks and Brussels sprouts and all this, fine dining basically. And she like, we in here suffering with hearing him do all of this shit, each and every day. I can't sleep. He using stuff, breaking stuff. And I'm just like, man, he's gonna be all right. So about a month ago, they get into an altercation. And she says to him, Raymond, you cannot use the things in my house without asking me. And he's like, what's your problem? I'm just cooking and cleaning your dirty ass house. Because she is not dirty. She just has stuff everywhere. It's clean. But is it really clean when you got shit everywhere? That's not really clean. That's a problem. It's a fire hazard. So he's telling her, I'm cleaning up your house. I'm actually doing something, and you're getting mad with me because I'm doing something. And she's like, well, you still have to ask me to use my things. And that's another thing. Her and her things, like, people that have that hoard, it doesn't matter if it's a silver piece of silverware, a spoon, a knife. They know where every junky ass piece is. You move one thing and they are emotionally attached to every single thing in that space. You move it 1 inch, she knows, and it's a problem. So I'm telling her, Nana, you got to fix yourself. You got to help. Let's take stuff out. We have 3 lockers at U-Haul filled to capacity. The biggest lockers that they have. She pays hundreds of dollars in storage fees per month with all this stuff. And I'm like, so this is what I'm dealing with while I'm being the illustrious Queen of Shade going viral. So this is what I'm dealing with in my house. So I don't know what happened, but I was filming. I heard them get into an argument. I said goodbye to my guests, and I took my time because I didn't think it was going to get out of hand. I didn't think it was going to escalate. But the way she was calling his name, my brother walked around the house every day with a pair of noise canceling headphones in his ears and then headphones over those headphones. And he would use both, play the same song and have it playing in the noise canceling headphones and the big headphones on top of them. I don't know what that was about, but that was his thing. So he didn't hear you if you called his name. So you'd have to walk up on him. And one thing about me is I would never walk up on my brother. He was in the Army. I'd never walk up on him. So I'd turn on a light and then he'd turn around and I'd be like, dude. And he'd take it off and he'd be like, I can hear you. But this was the thing. The whole time he was here with me and my grandmother and my nephews, if you said anything to him, he was nasty. He was mean. He was surly. Even with me. And I noticed it. I can hear you. What the fuck do you want? And I'm just like, Raymond. And that, like how I just did it. I would be over it. I'd be like, listen, you got to do this, whatever. So I take my time walking downstairs and I'm too late. I heard them arguing. He was asking her why. Why is it a problem when I do it? You're treating me like I'm not part of the family. This is what he's saying to her. You're treating me like I'm an intruder. Evan, my nephew, Elin was here. BJ could use anything in this house and you don't say nothing. Can move anything in this house and you don't say nothing. I move something and you ready to go to World War III. So he says that to her. And my brother had this thing about him. And see, this is the problem. Whenever I would argue with my grandmother, not with him, because he got into it with my nephew. I was filming one day and they arguing like crazy. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's calling my nephew outside so they can fight. And I'm like, no, no, no. And you hear my grandmother, no, 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 ain't nobody going outside and fight. It was a lot of drama going on up in this house. Oh God, so much drama. I just needed to take a breath real quick. Like, it's just, Mom, I'm spilling my guts. But so turn around and they're arguing. All I hear is the sound of something crashing. So then I quicken my pace. I'm like, all right, what's going on? So I get downstairs. It's dark, but my brother had this thing. Whenever you yelled at him or argued with him, he would come to your face and turn his head sideways so you could yell it in his ear. And then he would turn this ear so you could yell it in his ear. But he was never threatening, never violent. So I would let him step into my space while I'm yelling at him about defending my nephews. You can't do this to them. And I would say to him, and see, that was my thing. We're good at assessment. So I would say, you told me how the young people in the army bullied you. So like, he would just be angry with my nephews because they were younger than him. So I would tell him, you're traumatized socially. You have social trauma by young people that bullied you in the army, and now you're projecting it onto my nephews, onto our nephews who have done nothing to you. You cannot get mad at them and act like they're the ones that bullied you in the army. They're not. And he would chill out because I would make him see what he was doing, show him and the root of it. I could get to the root of it. So I hear something crashing. This is the argument between him and my grandmother. My nephew is downstairs asleep. His girlfriend is asleep because they started working at night. And my other nephew moved to California. He got out of here. He was like, I'm getting out of here. I can't take it no more. So he goes over to California, has a manic episode, finds out he's bipolar. But he was able to get into some help. It's California. Most of the stars out there are bipolar. So they got all kinds of respite homes and, he's in, they really do. So he's in one of them and he's working now. And where I had to take off so much of my life and time because nobody really came to my aid other than my grandmother to get me home, they came to my nephew's aid, the whole state, and literally helped him. And now he missed no time. Graduated from high school, got a job, has a place to live, is literally living his life without any interruption. So he leaves. My nephew jumps up and my brother is turned to him and my nephew's like, chill, 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 chill. Like he's saying, chill, chill, chill. My grandmother is standing up and I come down and I'm like, what just happened? And my brother says, I was asking her why she was treating me like a stepchild and she pushed me down. So my nephew and I, it's dark, we didn't see. So my nephew and I, he walks away. So me and my nephew, we start in on my grandmother, like, why would you put your hands on him? And we're telling her we're so disappointed in her. We ain't never seen her hit nobody. Why are you hitting him? Why are you treating him like he's not your grandson? Like, we are going in on her. And we're like, you need to apologize because he's mentally ill and he's already got trauma with him. And he's talking to her about when he was a child and the things she allowed other people in the family to do to him and never stepped in and intervened for. So we're hearing a whole lot of shit. We're hearing his trauma. So we turn on the lights and she's like, I apologize. She apologized to him. She called him down. He looks at her and walks right back upstairs. And I said to her, you're never going to be able to undo that. Because my brother holds grudges. He will never forget that. And we're like, Nana, you just fucked up. Like, we told you, Mom, you just fucked up. Why would you put your hands on him? She says to me, It was dark. Y'all do not know. He came toward me and I literally felt his face against my face. And I literally pushed him back as a response. Me and my nephew, we're like, no, that's not what happened. Like, you know, and that's really what happened. So from that moment in that argument, she's telling him, you gotta get out. You gotta leave. Get out of my house. He's saying, I'm not going no fucking where. Now, mind you, he had been here almost a year. So he's like, I'm not going no fucking where. And me and my nephews, we kind of became privy to their arguments. We're kind of like, and we'd be like, to both of them, we'd be like, it's too many people in this house. Like, what's going on? Like, chill. So March 1st rolls around and my other nephew and his girlfriend move out. They live in the same complex, but they got their own townhouse around the corner from us because they both work at night, and you know, graveyard always makes more money because that's the shift that nobody wants. But if you do graveyard, they pay you more money. So they're working, and I mean, they're traveling an hour each way to get to work, but they live closer now. They live around the corner and they work closer now. So they move out. So it's just me, my brother, my grandmother, and the cat in this house. So it's quieter. I notice my brother getting more and more violent, slamming things. And I'm like, oh God. And I mean, now mind you, at this point, my grandmother and him have exchanged words constantly. And she said to him, get the fuck out, get out, get out, get out. So by this time, me and him are arguing. And I'm like, Ray, you got to leave. I'm like, man, I don't want you here. So he like, I'm not going no fucking where. So after that incident, she says, this is not good for any of us. She says, you're a grown man, May the 31st. And this was in, I think, March 1st. So she said, by May the 31st, I want you gone. And she's like, I'm gonna give you time to get a job, whatever, whatever. Now, mind you, during the whole time he was here, she was urging him and I was urging him to find employment. He would apply for jobs and then they would call him for the interview because he was highly qualified and highly intelligent. He wouldn't go. So I would tell her, he needs time, give him time, give him time, give him time. That's what I kept saying. So I noticed he's getting more and more irate. So then what I didn't realize about me was that all of us in the house basically was sleeping with one eye open with him being here. He was irate. He was confrontational. He was saying things like, I could kill everybody in the house. But I wasn't, it was me. My nephew, even my nephews would say, Uncle BJ. And I would be like, he's not violent, y'all, he's not violent. And they would be like, and my one nephew that moved out, Ev, he's been through serious abuse and trauma. So he knows an abusive situation when he sees it. So he was like, no, Unc, he's prone to violence. And I'm like, my brother ain't never been violent. And he's like, no, Unc, he's prone to violence. And I'm like, I'll handle this. That was me trying to handle my brother, trying to help my brother. But at this point, you know, I'm sleeping on pins and needles too, and didn't really realize it. So what's today? Today is March the 19th. So like, I want to say we're up and down. Now, mind you, the whole year that he was here, he never had a period where he came down from that mania. He was literally like that, cussing, screaming, slamming in that room the whole entire year. Like, it was bad. So, but my attitude was, at least he has a space to do that, a safe space to do that. Because what people don't understand about mental illness and mania is whether or not you go to the hospital or not, it has to run its course. It doesn't matter what medicine they give you. You have to go until your body naturally starts to come down. People don't realize that about mental illness. It must run its course, which is why you stay in the hospital until it starts to run its course. You come down, then the medicine starts to work. So I'm thinking he can't be manic for a whole year. He's going to come down. Not one time did he come down the whole year. So by this time, I have all kinds of anxiety about him being here and him fighting with my grandmother and my natural capacity to protect her and my nephews. And I'm like, all right, you doing too much. So by this time, I'm fed up. So I say to my grandmother one morning, today's the 19th. This was the 16th. I'm like, Nana, by Pennsylvania law, you have to give him something in writing that's evicting him, saying that you need him gone because he has been living here for a year. He has established residency here. You have to give him 30 days. It doesn't matter if he doesn't pay one bill. Pennsylvania and they stupid ass laws, people can stay in your house when you don't want them there. I've seen it happen. So I draft the letter, and the letter doesn't talk about him being irate, doesn't talk about anything. It just says, hey, as of May 31st, you need to vacate the premises. That's all the letter say. My grandmother signs it. I fold it. I take it and she signs it. I bring it back upstairs. Literally, I walk in the room. Now, this is the thing this is what people don't understand about mental illness. Sexuality is tied to it. And once a person, especially a man, even with mental illness, once they achieve a climax or an orgasm, in the blood, there are certain chemicals that are released in the body to calm you down. That's why most men, after they come, they go to bed, they go to sleep. That's a natural body function. So I walk in, my brother is basically masturbating to bring himself down. And so I've never seen this before. So I'm like, oh my God. So he's like, oh, sorry, my bad. He's saying the boy shit, my bad. I'm like, okay, no problem. So it's a folded letter. So I just put it on the glass coffee table and I head out the room and shut the door. I want to say 7 minutes later. Now this is about 11:20 in the morning, 11:20, 11:10, 11:20. My nephew's not here. My grandmother's downstairs. So I hear him say, oh, you're going to fucking do this to me. He flies out the room to me. So I'm calm. The letter said everything. You got to leave. I'm thinking it's a done deal. So he flies out the room. I'm not fucking going nowhere. I said, Raymond, by law, she has issued you a letter. You literally have till the date on the letter. So I notice that he's getting irate and violent and he's cursing and he's doing this. He didn't get in my face, but by this time I'm fed up, I'm shaking. It's so fresh. This trauma just happened. So, oh my God. Hold on, give me a sec. So by this time, I'm fed up myself. He needs to go. So I say to him, Raymond, you can either leave May the 31st, or you can leave today with the police. I'm trying to appeal to his rationale, not box him in a corner, give him options and choices. Because it doesn't matter if a person is mentally ill or not, you never give people ultimatums or push them into a corner, because that can provoke violence, and I know that. So I'm giving him options. I'm like, you getting out of hand, buddy. I can give you can leave today with the cops, or you can leave May the 31st. Make your choice. So he's like, call the fucking police. So by this time, I recognize that my brother is acting different. So everything inside of me is ringing like, call the police. And I never did that to him before. Everything, like my whole, like even my flame, you know, as the phoenix, that's your whole body's encased in flame. My flame is like, call the police, call the police. So, God, I'm shaking. Ooh. So I pick up my phone and I call the police. He goes back in the room. So I go downstairs and my grandmother's like, what happened? What's going on? Because she heard us arguing. I said, I call the police, they'll be here. Put on something, wear something. They coming in here. So she has this thing. She's like, they coming here with all this stuff. I'm like, it's this your stuff. This your stuff. This is not my stuff. This your stuff. They coming in here. So she puts on something and okay, I'm gonna say this because this is just a part of life. My grandmother, whenever we have to have someone come into the apartment, she will go sit in her car and leave us to deal with the people's remarks about her house. And I said to her, no, you ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. This is your shit. You did this. But she will leave. And then I'm like, no, you're going to sit right there. Because if you're leaving and trying to get away from people's opinions, then you know what the hell you're doing is wrong. You know it's wrong. Okay? And that you need to stop doing it. If you're embarrassed, then you know what the fuck you're doing. So yeah, that's just my little thing with her. She next. I got to work on her, and it's already started, and she's receptive. She's more receptive than he was. So the police come. Very handsome, Caucasian and Latino. And mind you, I let them in and I tell them, listen, I have to turn on the lights. I don't want you to fall on the foul. Listen, there's a lot of stuff in this house, but I need you to come in so I can shut this door so we can handle what's going on. Because I got neighbors. I don't want nobody to know my business. So they come. The Caucasian officer goes upstairs because I tell him where my brother is. So he goes upstairs and knocks on the door and my brother opens it. And like I said, masking is our thing. So he's calm, cool, collected, using dollar words, not 50-cent words, dollar words. So I'm downstairs speaking to the Latino officer. And even while I was speaking to him, I said, officer, you are very handsome. So he looks at me, he goes, thank you. And then we get back to business. So I'm like, listen, I start to explain he's been here a year. He's schizophrenic. It's getting more and more irate. And that I called because I'd never seen him in this position before. I'd never seen him act like this. So I'm thinking, okay, this is coming to a crisis for real now. So the officer says, well, you know, we can't force him to leave. He's a resident here. And I'm like, and my grandmother looks at me and I'm like, and they're like, we also can't 302 him. I'm like, so then what the fuck are y'all doing? So the officer says to me, if you want him gone, you have to go down to family court and you have to get a PFA, which is a restraining order, and an eviction notice. It has to be both. And then you come back to the precinct and we come and escort him from the property. So I'm thinking, we're not going to need all of that. You know, no, but I'm realizing he's getting more and more violent when you tell him he got to leave. I'm shaking. Woo, this was only, what, 72 hours ago? So they tell me what to do and they leave and say, good luck. So I don't think that, I didn't know that there was a police report already. They put it together, the incident and everything, they had documented it. So they leave. It's still about They got here pretty fast too, so, and they do, especially my voice, because you know, when I call, I sound like a whole white woman. So if I tell them, excuse me, I need, you know, assistance, I live at, you know, such and such and such, they like, man, we'll be right there. And they show up. They show up real fast for this voice, for the voice. So it's about noon. I hear my brother in the room, banging, cursing, pacing. Lord, I'm reliving it. I gotta calm down. It just, oof. So I hear him pacing. Now, mind you, I had never heard him like this. He's like, oh, they called the fucking cops. And like, I heard him talk to his voices. So I'd heard them all deliberate before. So what gets me is noon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, 12 hours from the time that we gave him the letter, 11 o'clock at night, he is still cursing, banging, irate in the room. So I braced myself because I knew I needed to knock on the door and tell him to calm down. So I'm sitting on my bed. So I get up and I'm like, I'm not thinking nothing's gonna happen. Right before I get to the door, I hear something that I've never heard before. I've never heard him say. I hear that fucking bitch and that fucking faggot. So I'm like, okay, all right, there's a whole new ball game. I knock on the door. I'm like, Raymond. He opens the door. I'm like, Raymond, it is 11 o'clock at night. You need to calm down. I'm not doing shit. Tries to slam the door. My foot is there. And he doesn't slam my foot in the door. It's just that the way I'm standing, when he tries to slam the door just pops, bounces off the front of my foot and opens back up. So I'm still standing there. So he yanks the door back open. I said, Raymond, tomorrow I am going to family court. I am getting a restraining order and an eviction notice. You will be leaving tomorrow. I said, and I start to go into my spiel. For a year now, Raymond, I'm trying to appeal to his logic and his reasoning. For a year now, Raymond, I have covered you. I have been there for you. I have fed you. I'm doing all of that. And I'm like, and this is the thanks that I get? I'm like, Raymond, you brought this on yourself. And I said to him, how long did you think she was going to let you stay here? You couldn't stay here forever. That wasn't the arrangement. So I'm thinking that he's listening. He opens the door wider. And he's like, you ain't nothing but a simp husband doing that bitch's bidding. I did just like this. I said, Raymond, you leaving. I ain't fucking leaving. At that moment, he charges me. And it wasn't just a regular charge. It was, I'm going to kill you charge. I literally had 3 seconds to decide whether I was going to fight my brother or not. And then I'm going to kill you fucking faggot and that bitch comes after that. His behavior was so irate, I knew this was not a threat. He took all day to decide, deliberated all day, and he had made his decision. I knew it was serious. So when he charged me, I punched him in his face. And then he went to grab from me, and I moved him out of the way and threw him into the closet behind me. And I'm punching him, I'm hitting him, I'm fighting him. And even as I was fighting, I'm not trying to hurt my brother. I'm thinking, this is my brother. Literally, I have him, and the steps are right there. And for a split second, something said, throw this bastard down these steps. And then the voice of reason said, no, don't do that. So I grab him and throw him backwards. He flies into the bathroom, into the tub. And I knew my conscience said, keep hitting him. You have to get him to stop. So he's trying to get out the tub to fight even more. So I'm hitting him. Then I'm gonna kill you and I'm gonna kill her. So now I realize this is real. And if I lose this fight, my grandmother gonna die, and so am I. I had never seen my brother like that before. But the look in his eyes let me know all I needed to know. As an empath, I knew. So even after I fight him, he's on the floor and I'm looking at him and I'm like, what did you think was going to happen if you charged me? Because he said to me, I've never hit you in my life. He tried to play the victim. He tried to recoil, one of his personalities. He tried to recoil to get me to be off guard. Look at what's going on here, to get me to stand down for a second so that he could get the upper hand. So I've never hit you. How dare you? I can't believe you hit me. I didn't snap out of what I was doing. I simply backed up. Literally 2 seconds later, I said 30 seconds, but I literally had about 5 seconds to catch my breath. And he charged me again. And I'm fighting him. We wind up in the bathroom. The bathroom is close quarters. I fight very well in close quarters because I'm the type of person where if I get my hands on you, so all that swinging and windmilling and all that shit out here, I gotta get close to you, because then that allows you not to be able to get away from me. I will literally fight, like with the person, I will literally fight you and keep you close to me and be fucking you up. That's how I do it. So I'm fighting him in close quarters behind the door. My grandmother is downstairs screaming and crying. She calls my nephew from around the corner. My nephew was here with the police. So my nephew said to me, Uncle BJ, my conscience is ringing. I'm not leaving. I said, Evan, it's cool. When the cops leave, go home. He said, Unc, my conscience, every time I go to leave, my conscience is ringing. I'm not going nowhere. I said, you're only around the corner. We're going to sleep on it. But by this time, me and my grandmother already know we sleeping with one eye open. She calls my nephew and he's on his way around here. I hear the call and I hesitate for a second. That gives my brother a moment to get his hands around my throat. He gripped my throat so hard. I have on makeup here. I have full, deep gashes all along my neck up here. They're open. I've been putting medicine on them. He grips my neck and digs in. So I have to refocus on him. As I go to swing, we start to fall onto the ground. He falls on his back, I'm on my back. He still has his hands around my neck. I'm still hitting him. As this arm comes in close to him, he bites down on this thumb, holding it in place and does not release it. I feel the pain, but I'm still hitting him with the other hand, grabs the other arm. Literally with his legs, literally he's using the small space. So literally I'm sitting there and I feel myself getting lightheaded. And I realized, your brother is trying to kill you. This is not a fight. This is a murder. And I'm like, all the shit, it just hits me. I'm laying there and I'm like, all the shit he said all year, this bitch was planning to kill us. And I'm like, all I think about is my grandma. She's 75. I'm thinking, no, I can't let this happen. So I'm getting lightheaded. I can't breathe. I say to him, I can't breathe. He does not relinquish. So in that moment, most people that can't breathe panic. And if you panic, your lights are going out. One thing about me, because of dealing with my family and all of this trauma and my own trauma and social trauma of being a Black man and occupational trauma and all of these traumas, is I have this gift, even bigger than my resiliency. I have a gift that just allows me to completely relax in the middle of a storm. Trauma, turbulence, fighting, rape, it doesn't matter what it is. I've survived it all. I just get real calm. I'm shaking like a crazy man now, but okay. So what happens is in that moment, because you got oxygen in your blood, there's oxygen still in your body. I just relax. And it gives me enough strength to pull to where I'm on the bathroom floor. He's got me. And I stand completely to my feet with him wrapped around me. And he's tearing into my neck. And as I stand completely up, gravity does the rest because he has no support now. He falls to the floor on his back. I have never seen that look in my brother's face. And even at that point, I was not trying to murder him. I was not trying to harm him. I just looked at him and I said to him, Raymond, what are you trying to do? He's growling. He's hissing. He's losing his shit. I step over him. Now get this. Before I stand up, even with him choking me, I was getting the best of him. My brother, during that time, stopped saying, I'm going to kill you or murder you, and started saying, somebody call the police. He started screaming, somebody call the police, because his brother was putting his lights out. So he is now the one, even with him choking me, I still regain the upper hand. And he's, as I say that to him, he's screaming, somebody call the police, because he thinks I've won. So I step over him because the bathroom door, I pull the bathroom door open, step over him, go outside the bathroom door, shut the bathroom door, because I hear my nephew coming. And I don't want my nephew involved, because my nephew said it earlier. If I get involved, I'm going to kill him. I said, oh, no. We don't need you involved. I kept telling him, let me handle it. So during this time, I go to meet my nephew before he comes up the steps. And my brother runs back into the room and locks the door. I didn't know the damage. I did not know the damage. My nephew comes in here and starts losing his shit. He sees my neck. I'm bleeding all down. And he's like, I'm going to fucking kill him. I'm going to fucking kill him. And my nephew loves knives. He loves knives. He buys them. He loves them. I'm like, no. So I'm like, no. I'm calling the police. So my nephew goes downstairs because my grandmother is screaming. She's irate. So he goes downstairs to see about her. It's 12 o'clock at night. So I'm sitting on my bed, and this was the thing that saved both his life and mine. He'll be 36 in June. I'll be 40 in September. We some old bitches fighting. We were both out of breath. When I tell you out of breath, I have never felt like that before. I mean, I was like even when I went to make the 911 call, I'm like, and I told them, please bear with me. I'm out of breath. So I'm like, I could not breathe for shit. So they said, listen, we're going to dispatch. Do you need an ambulance? I said, I don't know, because I hadn't seen a mirror. I hadn't walked past a mirror. I said, I don't know. They said, well, if we dispatch, and I've never heard them say if, but I said the cops were out there earlier. I explained, because I started to get my breath. I explained, but they said couldn't get them out. This is that and the other. So they say to me, we're going to put you in touch with the behavioral mental health crisis team unit. And they switched me over. So I'm talking to like a unit. I never knew they had a mobile, like a mental health unit. They had like mobile unit. So the unit starts to talk to me and they're like, this is when they tell me, okay. And I'm like, we just had a huge fight. I'm not saying he tried to kill me. I'm not saying that. It took me a while to say that. I'm shaking. It took me a while to say that. So they're still saying to me, we can't forcibly remove him from the home. They're still saying to me, being delusional is not against the law. Not taking your medicine or refusing treatment is not against the law, but you cannot 302 him. So they switched me back over to the cops. The cop says, we can dispatch a unit to you immediately, ma'am. I said, they said, would you like us to do that? I said, yes. So then they said, but no, for mind you, she says, if we do that, your brother will be arrested and taken to jail. So I said, what? She said, if we do that, your brother will be arrested and taken to jail because he's schizophrenic. Yes. They tell me he tried to kill you. And many schizophrenics do the same thing. So I'm like, oh God. So they're like, if we come out there, we're taking him to jail. Jail is not where he belonged. So I thought. So I say, no, don't come. So they said, well, ma'am, if you don't want us to come and you still want to go ahead with going to family court and doing it that way, you've got to go to the hospital right now because they have to see you, treat your wounds, give you a printout of what you had done so you can take it with you to family court and it will assure and ensure that you get your restraining order on the spot. So I hang up. I no longer feel safe in the house. My grandmother no longer feels safe in the house. My nephew, my brother comes out of the room and my nephew shoots up the steps. My brother runs back in the room. Oh, I just fought. I don't want to fight no more. Somebody call the police. He's completely switched to victim. Locks the door. So my nephew can't get in there. And I'm like, Evan, let's go. So we literally put my cat up and literally, because I don't even want him to kill my cat. Like that's how serious it was. So we put my cat up and we literally leave the house. We leave him in here. We do not even stay in our own house. We literally fled from our own house. So I go to the hospital. This fucking thumb, when I tell you it hurt, it swelled up, it hurt so bad. So I'm explaining to them what's going on. They looking at my neck. They like, baby, it's not your neck you need to be worried about. I mean, your thumb you need to be worried about. It's your neck. Like that needs to be looked at. So they're looking at it that you don't need stitches. Like, oh my God, he missed your vocal cord. So I'm like, oh my God. Like it, like they're looking at everything. They're assessing me. I'm bloodied. I'm bloodied. So they see me, they give me antibiotics, a tetanus shot. What else? Tetanus shot, antibiotics, and tell me to make an appointment with my doctor, but they give me the printout. So after that, they tell me, now you need to take this to the precinct and you need to get the docket number, the DC number, of the police report that you filed earlier. So mind you, I'm being walked through every single step of this process. So I'm just literally following, and I did everything they told me to do. So I go to the police station and I look like hell. Got all kinds of swabs and stuff. This stuff looks it looks a mess. Like you can't even see it. I don't even want to go get close up on it. It looks a mess. So, but I had to take the Band-Aid off because it needs to have the air so that it will scab. I need it to scab. It wasn't scabbing. So turn around and I get the docket number. Now, mind you, by this time, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning. My grandmother was like, you're going down to the family court. Now, my grandmother has this thing. She doesn't go into the city. She doesn't like to go down in the city. It gives her anxiety and triggers her and all kinds of stuff. So she drives me to the train. My nephew is on the phone. He calls out of work and he goes with me. He accompanies me because as the queen of shade, I don't go anywhere by myself. I don't go anywhere. You're not going to catch me lacking. But so we're on the train. The court opens at 8. We're on the train at 6. We get down to Center City at about 7. We're the first people in the building and they looking at me because I look like, mind you, I have a thumb. My thumb is covered. My neck is not. So they looking at me and you can see, and I'm speaking to the officers and they looking like, are you, and everybody, you here to get a restraining order? So opens at 8. And this is another thing. I gotta say, shout out to every cop that helped me. Oh, they were so helpful and so supportive and so good looking. So this guy comes over, this police officer comes over. He was 50 years old. My God, he was fine. And black guy, he comes over and I'm like, and I said to him, now mind you, I'm looking like a pterodactyl and took a chunk out of my neck. And he's looking at me and he's like, it's going to be okay. And I say to him, I'm like, you are so handsome. He's like, thank you. And he's like, and then he says to me, if you need anything, you let me know.
I sure will. I sure will.
That's exactly what I said. Thank you so much. So now, mind you, I'm not dressed as a woman. I'm dressed as me. I got on a baseball hat. I didn't know how bad my neck looked. So I get inside and I sit down at the window. I tell the attendant what I'm there for. I show her my ID. She gives me the paperwork to fill out. She looking at me like she didn't see a ghost. She looking at my neck like literally, I'm first one in there, me and my nephew. I'm filling out all the paperwork. Even the paperwork, filled it out so fast. Like it just was happening. It just was like it was moving. I hadn't been asleep, but it was moving. So they call my name, Dufo. That's my last name. So I go back with the lady. And this is domestic violence and domestic abuse. So they see cases all the time. So I see the woman making a point not to look at the damage on my body. So I go into her office and she's going over my paperwork. She asked me what happened. And she says to me, don't tell me the whole story. See, they know about trauma and reliving it. So she was like, don't tell me the whole story. Who was it that accosted you? This, that, and the other. She's going through all the basics. She says, hold on, I have to go get the camera. So I'm like, okay. She comes back and she was like, if you don't mind, I have to take pictures of your neck. So she's like, you got to turn your head. Now, by this time, it hurts to turn my head. It doesn't hurt so much now because it's scabbed, but there's so much. Like I got all 5 fingers in my neck. So, of his fingers in my neck. So she takes pictures and she's like, she's like, I'm going to get all this stuff together. You take this downstairs to the 3rd floor. So I go downstairs to the 3rd floor. She's like, someone will meet you there. So I'm there. I'm the first one there. They take my information from me. And they have the pictures. They printed them out that fast. So I'm shaking so hard, Mom. I'm shaking so hard. So I go in and it's an Asian judge. And I'm speaking into the mic. Now, mind you, my voice, because of the scratches and everything, like I didn't realize it, like fighting and yelling, and my voice is breaking up bad. So she pulls the pictures and she's looking at them. I wasn't before her 5 minutes. She was like, she asked me one question. Does your grandmother also want this person gone from your home? I said into the microphone, yes, Your Honor. It was done. She said, that's all I need from you. You will have a court date next week. I got the court date. She told me when it was. She said, I'm granting it. Come back and don't forget to come back. She said, because this will make it permanent. She said, now take this paperwork back up to where you came in the first place. So I go up there. They give me the order. That she signs off on, the actual order, the full packet. They give me 2 copies. They come back. The same woman comes back out. She says, listen, this copy is for you. It tells you when your court date is and your time. And the other one is for the police. You take these home, you go to the police station, and you give it to the cops. They will accompany you to your house and serve it. So, mind you, I'm gone. I think I got back home before noon, maybe. Yeah, before noon. So my grandmother sat in the car in front of the house the entire time. She didn't use the bathroom, nothing. She would not go in the house. So when I called her to tell her that we were on our way, I didn't want her to leave so early because it takes about 45 to 50 minutes to get to where we are. And then it's another 45 minutes to our house. We live pretty far out. So she was at the train station to meet me and my nephew. And now the pain is starting to kick in. And I'm looking at my neck and I'm just like, I start crying because I'm like, oh my God. Like, I think what I had to realize was A, this was happening. B, my brother tried to kill me. C, now I have to have a restraining order against my brother for the rest of my life. And then I'm thinking, my brother was the closest thing to me and the last real member of my family and my heart. I thought we will always be. I thought that we had survived so much together, we would always be there for each other. So I realized I was losing my brother. So I go to the police station and they are taking their time. Of course they are. And I'm like starting to feel the pain. So I've got to go because I didn't get a chance in the morning to go get the antibiotics and things like that. So I'm like, I asked them, is there any cops coming down there? And they say this, we're changing shifts. There's a lot happening because get this, seasonal depression, seasonal mania, everybody that has any mental illness is feeling the change in the weather. This is causing mania in everybody, even in me. I just know how to manage mine. So I'm like, they say, well, listen, you can go do what you need to do. And then when you go home, you can call us and we'll serve it. We'll come out and serve it. So so I go get the medicine and all that stuff and I take it and I start to feel a little better, but my neck looks horrific. My nephew wants to kill my brother and he says to me, my nephew is my best friend. My nephew Ev is my best friend. He's my biggest supporter. And he says to me, I want to fuck him up. I want to kill him. And I'm like, why? And he said, because he damaged beauty. You got to walk around like this, and you are a person that did not deserve this. You tried to help him, and he hurt you. So my nephew is going off. So I have to tell my nephew to go home. So my nephew accompanies us into the house. My brother hears my nephew, so he locks himself in the room and doesn't come out the whole day because he thinks my nephew is downstairs ready to whoop his ass and murder him. So he stays in that room. So I sit on the bed with my grandmother and I call the police. They tell me we'll send someone. It was like 2 hours. It was like 2 hours. I don't know what's going on right here. This hurts. But it was like 2 hours. So then they show up. First cop on the scene is a woman, beautiful Caucasian woman. She pulls up and she pulls down because I told them he can see from the front window. Like, I need you to pull down. So I gave the cops the instructions. Like, you got to pull down so he can't see you. Because I'm like, listen, he's irate, he's violent. This is, I've never seen him like this, but it's real. Look at my neck. This is real. So they're like, all right. So so she pulls down, but before she gets here, I go over to my neighbor's house and she has her door open. And my neighbor is a very famous influencer herself, and her husband, he's a DP, film and director, and does all of this stuff. And he works for BET, and I got good people around me. Makes music videos, takes pictures of Cardi B and all these people. Like, he flies all over this damn country. So I go over to her and I tell her, I say, listen, you're about to see a shit show on this lawn. And they have a baby. Their baby is only like 2. I'm like, I don't want your baby anywhere near the windows, or, I don't want him to have to see, because you could tell the way they are and the way their house is, and they upscale people. So I'm telling her, like, you about to see a shit show. I just want to prepare you. I'm sorry. And she's like, why are you apologizing? You need peace in your home. You tried to help him. It's time for him to go. Let them do their job. And what I love about her and her husband is they not nosy. You know how Black folk is. Usually when some shit go down, they in the windows, they got the door open, they watching. She shut her door so that her baby wouldn't see. She drew her curtains. They didn't need to see what was going on outside. So the female police officer, pretty woman, pulls up, and I go over to the car and I say, hi, are you here for K3? And she was like, yes. And I tell her, ma'am, I know you're a police officer, but you need to call for backup. And she says, really? I said, yes. So I said, he's 6'2", he's an army man, violent. You need to call for backup. So she says, all right. She stays in her car. She doesn't get out. She stays in her car. And she takes my name and my number, because now she's filling out a report. So a Latino officer is on the scene next. He's older. She's young. He's older, but not quite as spry as I need him to be. Young and vibrant. He's a cop. But I'm like, honey, this can ruin your whole day. So I look at her and him and I'm like, y'all need to call for backup. They like, more? I'm like, yeah. So another Caucasian cop answers. So I got 3 Caucasian cops out there to my aid and my rescue. They did not treat me with any racism, nothing. And then a Black cop comes, quite handsome. He didn't like my cat, so I had to put my cat up. He's a dog person. He's like, cats are sneaky. I'm like, that's why I love them. So we're talking. So before they enter the house, they're talking to me and they're looking at me. And I mean, she's close up on it. And she's like, how did you get out of his hold? And I'm like, I was able to stand up. And she was like, he tried to kill you. Like, he's got to go. And I'm like, he's my baby brother. And, but at this point, I'm over it. Like, I felt with that fight, I felt a detachment happen. I no longer had the same emotion for him, the same love for him. Even now, like, to put it visually, where I thought of my brother before and I saw like a garden, like flowers and things, soil and places where I could plant seeds, I see nothing but dry earth in my mind sight. Nothing growing on it, soil dry, nothing. That's literally how I see my brother when I look at him. Like, that's what I see. So they're talking to me, and they're like, what do you do? And I'm out there talking to them, and I'm telling them, and I'm showing them in my phone, and they're just like, wow. And they're just like, you know, and they're saying things like, why don't you do anything in Philadelphia? And I'm like, because I can't work here. They're not ready for somebody like me. I'm not a drag queen. I'm a cross dresser. And she's like, oh, but you could, she's telling me like, oh, like, this is why we were talking. She's like, because they wouldn't go in the house yet. They really was trying to figure out how they was going to approach this, because they're like, he's schizophrenic. So they knew, like, all right, they said no weapons in the house. I'm like, no, there's no weapons in the house other than pots, pans, knives, forks, you know. And I'm like, he does have that stuff upstairs. So they're like, all right, so they giving it time. So they're like, oh, well, you know, the cops, we have a gay unit and they hold bingo nights and stuff like that, and you can host this, and they trying to give me a job. And I'm just like, all right, so I'm listening. So finally we all enter the house, and they say to me, but before we enter, they say, get your grandmother, because she's sitting on the bed in there in her hoarding situation, and she didn't want to be in there no way. So they say, get your grandmother, take her from the house, put her in the car. So I do that. I grab my cat and my grandmother, take the cat, put the cat in the bathroom downstairs, because 2 bathrooms in here. I put the cat in my bathroom downstairs, and I take my grandmother, walk my grandmother to the car, lock your door, stay in the car. My neighbors see this happening. They shut their curtains, shut their blinds. So turn around. Oh, my neighbor's so gorgeous too. I'm going, oh God, that's just a side thought. She's so beautiful, and so is her husband. Oh, beautiful people. So we enter the house. They tell me, don't you go up. You point us where he is. So I take them upstairs. They ask me to move like the cat tree, the scratch tree and everything, because they're like, we don't want to fall down the steps in case we have to with him. So I'm moving the litter box, because I got the big alien power portal, you know, cat box and stuff. So I'm moving all the litter box and stuff, closing doors. I'm like, listen, this is the door. So they wait till I'm downstairs, and they tell me, stay in the house. I want you to hear. So they knock on the door. Raymond, open the door. It's the police. He opens the door. And they're like, how are you today? They ask him, how are you today? Best behavior. Oh, I'm good. I'm fine. They looking at him, because I got the best of him. Like he never threw, like he never, and that was the thing. How you gonna murder somebody, try to strangle them to death, but you ain't, I was the one punching. I was the one hitting him. So his face is looking weird. So he's swollen, and he's like, yeah, my brother beat me up, and my nephew was waiting around to beat me up too. And, you know, it's a rough day, but hey, it is what it is. And you got to do what you got to do. And they're like, okay, that's unfortunate. They say to Sam, that's unfortunate, but you have to come with us. They show him the papers. This is an order for you to leave these premises. So he's like, okay, no problem. And this is what he says, no problem. While he was in there, he knew I was going to do that. And I told him. So he was packing. He was packing. He knew that it was over. He knew that it was over. So they're like, you got to come with us. So the cops, they talked to him for a minute, and they're like, okay, yeah, we hear that. You know, is there anywhere we can take you? And they keep saying to him, we need to take you to Friends. Friends is a psych eval hospital. They're like, you know, schizophrenia, are you taking medicine for it? And he's like, no. And they're like, well, we would love to take you to get some help. He's like, no, can you take me to a shelter? And the cop downstairs said, if he goes to a shelter and acts like he did here for a year, they're going to put him out on the street. It's better for him to go to the hospital, because he can stay there where he can get help, and the living quarters will be better. He will be fed and have somewhat decency and some dignity. So he's like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. So they're like, okay. They come back downstairs. They're like, well, we're not taking him anywhere far. And they were like, all the shelters are in North Philly. That's far. That's like an hour from here. They're not taking him that far. So they keep asking him, you know, can we take you anywhere? You have any friends, any family? Nobody. We were his last stop. So they tell me to go outside, stand on the grass. I stand on the grass. They come out, he comes out behind them. And then they was like, we don't know where he going with all these bags. Ain't nobody gonna take him in. Even the shelter, they said even the shelter not gonna let him bring all this stuff. I wasn't really worried about it at that point. So this is really, you know how your eye twitches because of the nerve of the stress? That's what's going on. So he comes out and he seems like a perfectly normal person. There we go. Normal person, no switch yet, but I told them, watch. So he brings the last bag out. And they're like, you can't come back here. Don't come back here. If you come back here, we will arrest you and take you to jail. And they're telling him, you have a court date. You need to appear on this court date in court for the continuum on the completion of this. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I'm standing on the grass. They're looking at me like, are you okay? And I'm just like, yeah, I'm fine. I don't speak to him. He doesn't speak to me. I'm looking at him. He doesn't look in my direction. And as he grabs the last bag, he goes, that fucking bitch and that fucking faggot. He flips out right there in front of the cops. They got to see it. His mask was over. It was done. So they turn around and the black cop looked at me and tells me, go in the house and shut the door. So I go in the house and shut the door. They put his stuff in the trunk, put him in the back of the car. I look out the window and I knew that that was the last communication or time I would ever see my brother again in life. I knew. And it didn't bother me. I had given so much to give. I was done. So I get my grandmother out of the car, and her and I, for the last 72 hours, we've been just talking about it over and over, trying to process it. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. 2 nights ago, on that first night, I got so sick, I felt that I literally had to go to the hospital. I go downstairs and she's sleeping and I did not want to wake her, but I literally felt like I was about to pass out. So I went in my dining room because I cleaned my dining room. So, and my cat, it's so funny, my cat loves to lay in there too. So my cat is laying in there. So I walk around the house into through the kitchen and to the dining room, and I get on the floor and I lay next to my cat and I just stay there. And my cat flips over on her back, and animals are just so amazing. And I just laid it with her. And I'm just like, and I just could not sleep. Now, mind you, my body is starting to ache everywhere. Now I'm starting to feel the damage. I got cuts all on the top of my feet, on both feet, on the bottom of my feet. My knees have cuts. Like I couldn't turn. My body is sore. Like I'm starting to feel the full gambit of what it was like to fight for my life. And it hurts. So she sleeps, but she wakes up. I'm still up. She's like, and where work has always been the thing that soothed me, I couldn't even work. I couldn't even work. I literally just laid on my bed with my hands clenched like this on my back and stared at the damn ceiling. I couldn't do anything. And every morning we would go get her coffee and I'm up and she's like, did you sleep? And I'm like, no. She's like, you gotta sleep. And she's like, you gotta eat. And I'm looking at her like, you gotta eat. You got diabetes. You gotta take your insulin. You gotta eat. So we're trying to get each other to eat. So that happened. That went on for 2 days. This morning, I went to her And she's like, have you eaten? Have you slept? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. And I'm like, I'm trying to avoid having to go to the hospital. I don't know what's wrong. And she's sitting there and she says to me, we're both in shock. And I'm like, okay. And then I realized, I'm like, I was afraid. And I had no idea how afraid I was the entire time he was here. But I'm so used to doing things afraid. I still do them. That's always been me. But in this instance, I had to admit that to myself. And when I did, it was like my body just let go and I was able to relax. So even when I asked you earlier to talk, I had been asleep for like 4 hours, which was the first time that I had slept, and I had eaten. It was the first, so today was the first day in 72 hours that I had eaten. So it was just like, I don't know where they took my brother. I don't care. He had no money, nothing but the clothes on his back and in his bags. And I said to my nephew, because my nephew's like, I better not see him nowhere around here. Like, and I'm like, no. And I told my nephew, I said, I'm so glad you did not get there. 2 minutes more, my nephew would have been in that bathroom murdering my brother. And then I'd have had a nephew in jail, waiting for a court date to prove that it was self-defense. And a lot can happen in jail to a young, very, very good-looking Black man. And that was the same reason I did not want the cops to come the second time for my brother, because I did not want him, because he was sick, to go to jail and be taken advantage of or raped or anything. Like, even in that, I was still doing my job as an older brother. But I really, now that I process it, I no longer have a brother. In my mind, I no longer, and I said to my grandmother, I already don't talk to my sisters. We lived in the same house, 2, 4, 6 years apart. We don't talk. And I was talking to one of my grandmother, and she said to me, she was like, he was jealous of you. They all were. And I said to her, I'm like, Nana, I did what I had to do. I got help for my illness. I got help for my condition. And the fact that all of them wish me dead because they lack the strength to come to their own rescue. I have no siblings. I have no siblings. And I now know why famous people, you don't see their families. It's a true separation that has to happen, because most of them are first generation wealthy, fame, whatever, in their families, and everybody else don't share the same mentality. And I'm just like, I used to always incorporate my brother into my plans and my ideas. So even with me getting the money together to move out of the country and take my grandmother with me, we've had our ups and downs, but she's proven to be not perfect, but someone who really does support me at times. And it's a relationship that I've decided, even with our differences, I'm burying the hatchet. She's 75 years old. She can't really hurt me. I have to help her to enjoy these golden years, and then she will close her eyes on this side of life. I will go on. so I can handle my grandmother around me. But I used to always think, oh, I got to get my brother a place to live. And how am I going to do that? And how I used to wonder, you know, he's got to have somewhere safe where he doesn't have to worry about rent. And it's like, I have spent my time always thinking about how to look out for him. And now all of that is gone. All of that is gone. And it's just like, it's so hard to accept.
How does it make you feel?
That's the problem, Mama. That's why I asked you to speak to me. I don't feel. That's the problem. That's why I asked you to come on, because I'm scared of how I don't feel. If I'm really good because of the 15 years of therapy with putting words to everything. But in this case, I'm just saying I don't feel, but I don't know how I feel. I don't feel. It's like someone cut my heart out of my body. I don't feel any militia. I told my grandmother, if I could get angry, at least I would know what anger was and why my anger. I don't feel angry. I just keep having these body tremors. That's what's happening. I just keep shaking. I don't, it makes me nervous. And because I know, anything you don't feel now, you will feel later. And I got too much work to do to deal with this. So I'm trying to sit and deal with it now. And I think my body is still in shock. It won't allow me to deal with it yet. My grandmother said, give yourself a week. And I conducted, what was that, the day before yesterday? I conducted an interview. I did an interview because I didn't want to cancel it. But I have no interviews. I think I may take one. I have two legendary people coming on, Stevie Boy, famous fashion designer, and Amor J. Couture, which is a famous fashion designer. I think I'm taking, no, I have nothing until next Sunday. Nothing. I think I'm being interviewed on Tuesday night at 7 on IG Live TV. Sir Ty is his name. And he goes by Sir Ty Online. I might as well plug it here. Sir Ty Online. And it's the Black business spotlight. I'm being interviewed for creating a successful brand and having a successful business and bringing it to the next level. But I put out to everybody what happened. And that was something I'd never done. I don't, after my brother, I don't want to mask anything ever again. That's one thing I know. The world may get tired of me telling them the goddamn truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but I'm not masking shit. After that, I'm not masking shit. And it brought me to another conclusion, but let me finish with this business thing, plug him in the right way. So Sir Ty wrote me when he read and was like, oh my God, do you want to postpone? I said, no. I said, no. I said, oh no, we're going to do it Tuesday. And I'll be ready. I'll be ready to talk about my business and not about this. That's why I'm doing it now. But I don't feel anything and I'm upset. I'm frustrated and crying because I don't feel anything. And I'm like, where are my feelings?
I believe I might have an answer for that.
Please.
1 second. Your feelings are in the same place where your image of your brother went.
Oh,
You're not upset because you don't have siblings anymore. You're upset because you don't have the siblings you thought you had anymore. You clung to the illusion that if I can do it, y'all can do it too, because we grew up together. We were afforded the same opportunity to get better. We were afforded the same opportunity to get help. You chose to take it because you were called to. Everybody doesn't have the same calling. That's why we don't all have the same phone number. We don't all get called for the same things. You were called for greatness because that's what was placed in you. It's innate. You can't buy that. You can't haggle for it, and you can't trade it away. You either have it or you don't. Your brothers and your sisters don't have it, and that's not your fault. And I believe to a certain extent, for a lot of years, you believed it was your fault because you felt like you were leaving them behind because you got the help and you made something of yourself. I don't think sometimes you even really realize the magnitude of how far you've gone with your gift and your calling. I really don't think anybody with a gift or a calling really realizes just how much they're doing with it because you're not meant to. Your gift benefits not just you and your heart, but millions of people that absorb you and take you in and hear what you have to say and consume what you have to give. You don't realize the full scope of what you offer to the world. And you felt as though, well, if my gift is helping people, then these should be the first people that I help. You took on that obligation that was not yours to take. You took on the role, in a sense, of a parental figure that you and your siblings didn't have. You were not guarded and protected the way you should have been during your formative years. So you figured you would have an opportunity to do that during adulthood as a form of reparations for your abandonment of them. This was your way of trying to clean your emotional slate as well as offering them help. In order to offer someone something, they have to want it in the first place. Your brother and your sisters are not at a place where they're willing to accept the help that they desperately need because having an affliction forms a comfortable barrier around you. It forms a protective wall around you. I was that way for a long time. I endured a lot of trauma in my life. My life has not been all shits and sunshine. It has not. I've endured a lot. And there was a time where I felt like it was because I was too nice. I let too many people in. So I figured if I start being an asshole, nobody will want to be around me. And if nobody wants to be around me, nobody can get close enough to hurt me ever again. The problem with that, oh, it works, but it works too damn good. Because while you are keeping out the people that can possibly hurt you, you're keeping out the people that can help you too. And you don't know the difference. As far as you're concerned, there is no difference. Your brother is at a state where he wants to be alone. However, he's not at a point where he's willing to acknowledge that as a problem and fix it. That's not your burden and it's not your business. And that's a very hard pill to swallow. Letting go of someone that you envisioned your entire life, them being there for your entire life, that's hard. It's very hard. But you go out of this world the same way you came into it, by yourself. Even twins are born one at a time. You are your main concern. If your brother doesn't want the help, so be it. You do not have to accept the magnitude of my gift because it's not yours. You don't have to accept me. You don't have to want to be around me. I want to be around me. The people who absorb me want to be around me. You've done more for yourself than anyone in your family could.
they always tried to make me feel like I was selfish. My whole family. Oh, he only thinks about himself. He's so selfish. And I was the opposite. I was so trying to please them and take them and make them and build them. And
Being selfish has such a negative connotation these days. I never understood it. I don't see you as being selfish at all. And even if I did, why is that a bad thing? Look what being selfish has gotten you. You've gone from being someone with mismanaged mental illness, doing videos in church hats and feather boas, to a licensed trademark with music streaming in 70 plus countries. You're being interviewed about business and growing a business and maintaining a business, building a business from nothing. I'd say being selfish has gotten you pretty damn far. And if I were you, I see no reason to stop.
It did do something because, I try to, everything that we go through is a lesson. One thing it did, though, and I don't even know if this is good, it made me afraid. I'm afraid of dealing with people. I don't want to deal with anybody else with mental illness. I feel like I got mine together and I just want to spend time focusing on mine. I don't want to take on nobody else who medicates through drinking or sex or anything. I don't want to be bothered. And one thing that it has allowed me to realize is I'm pulling back my resources. I'm pulling back what I give. I can give like this, but my money, they not getting that. And I find that I started to realize there are a lot of people, even that I was dealing with, that have mental illness, that are not waiting on my help. They're waiting on my finance. But they're not willing to get the help in the interim to be healthy, so that when I take off or do this or do that, they can be included. I don't want nobody around me with mental illness. Mine was enough. I don't want nobody. And my grandmother said to me, how will you know the difference? Because she said to me, you do such good work with people, for people that may be battling this, people that see this will be a trigger, like a siren to let them know, go get some help, go do what you need to do because you don't want to go this far. And then you have the same thing in the same breath, someone who had it, who you can see triumph and become successful and build. So you see both. You hear about the worst and you see the best of it at the same time. I don't want to be involved no more. I don't want to be involved no more. And that, like you said, it ostracizes you from everyone, but I'm scared to deal with people with mental illness. I'm not trying to be murdered, because you see something in my life that you can't have. And my brother was very jealous of me, and I knew it because of me being able to pull it together. He would always say, they all would, we don't have it like you. But you're right, I didn't give myself the strength and resolve that I have. The divine did.
And you're in such a fascinating place because you acknowledge that the gift was above you.
Yeah.
Go with the guilt.
Yeah.
Can't let go of the guilt. Guilt stick to you more than any blessing could. And I tell people that all the time. Guilt is very hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
I held guilt for a lot of years.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in a very lavish and luxurious. I grew up in the Bible Belt of the South.
Yeah.
Racism, homophobia, social segregation, because there's loopholes around it. I don't care what they say. It might be illegal, but there's always a way.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in that. I was the youngest of the family. I got the most attention. My siblings were jealous of that.
Yeah.
They were jealous of that, and they grew to hate me for it. They never outright said it, or they never outright, dogged me out in a way that would be too much, but I could feel that. I'm an empath. I know you hate me.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I hated me.
There you go.
To a certain extent, I hated me. Not because of anything I saw, but because I was a very impressionable person. If everybody else hates me, maybe I should too. There's something in here that I'm not seeing that makes me a piece of shit. Maybe I should just hate myself.
Yep.
I dealt with a lot. Neglect, molestation, depression, anxiety, being stressed the fuck out.
Yeah.
Over things that I didn't even inflict upon. I could understand if my hardships in life were self-inflicted. I didn't ask for anything that I went through. Everything that happened to me was due to other people.
Yeah.
And I carried that guilt and that hatred and that suffering and the hurt for so many years. But when I stepped behind a microphone and I graced the public with my gift,
Yeah.
something that started out as a means of coping,
Yeah.
because I remember when I was little, when my mother and father would argue, and then when they separated, when my mother and my grandmother would argue, or my siblings, or when my siblings were being disciplined, or things of that nature, I would go in my room, I would close my door, and I had a little piano up against my wall. I would sit and I would play that piano and I would sing songs to myself so I didn't have to hear it. What started out as a coping mechanism has solidified my place in queer music history. You've been able to take what you used as a means of grounding or expressing yourself during a time where your mental illness was not managed properly and you had no other means of getting your emotions out in a healthy way without hurting anyone or hurting yourself. What you did during that, you've built into a brand, a business, a way of life. And people see that.
My psychiatrist urged me to do this. My psychiatrist. This was cathartic for me. And so many people hate that I'm good at it. When all it was is what you just said. I sang to myself. I loved fashion and was prepared to be a voiceless model for the entirety of my life and let no one know I could sing. My therapist said, when are you going to make music? When are you going to make music? Asked me every time she saw me. When I came to YouTube back in 2008 and started singing, it was only as a means to soothe myself in an apartment by myself with no family and working as a phone sex agent. It was what I did to pass the time. And even then, people noticed. I met the people then that have helped me put this thing together today. Didn't have millions of followers, but I met the, like I like to call them, the elite 5, where you can have 5 million people following you. But honey, 5 million people can give you $1. 5 million people. I got 5 people that can give me 5 million each. That's what happened. The few that I met said, oh, we're gonna do this, do this, do that, do that. I met my producer, everything. And where people thought, oh, he flipped out on YouTube and had to go in the hospital, this, that, and the other. Even as I flipped out, I had already met the people I needed to meet. So that when I got myself together, I came and picked back up with those people and we built this. And my family has hated me for it. I have survivor's guilt. I've been talking about it in therapy for 15 years, guilty that I survived. We've been tackling it for 15 years, and it's not done yet.
And it might not ever be.
Mm-hmm.
You'll always have a little piece of that. However, the point is not to make it go away. Yeah. That's never the point. The point is to keep it from consuming you. Keep it from overpowering your thoughts and making you feel like you don't deserve anything. Keep it from doing that, because that's a bunch of bullshit. I'm going to tell you right now. You've worked too hard and for too long for you to sit around feeling sorry for yourself instead of reaping the benefits of your hard work. regardless of what your brother's going through, what your sisters are going through, what your grandmother, whoever else, regardless of what anybody has going on, you have shit to do.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get it done crying and wondering, why is me? Woe is me. Why don't they like me? They're not going to, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be blunt with yourself. I told you a long time ago, and you clung to it. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself the way you would fuck somebody up for talking to you.
Yes. Oh God, yes, you did.
Sometimes you have to have
You
those
should hear
rough
me in this
conversations.
room, honey. You should hear me, mama. You should hear me, mama. I be in this room, bitch. I get it. I do. I get with myself, but I just haven't gotten with myself about these issues.
Maybe that's what you need to do. So, I mean, it took me a long time to get to that point where I even felt comfortable having those conversations with myself. But then the day came, I got sick of being sick. I got tired of being tired. And I just walked up to a mirror and I said, look here, player.
Yeah.
This shit you doing right here,
Yeah.
you too old for that. You are 100 years old. Cut this shit out.
Yeah.
Get yourself together.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point now, my family.
I saw the eyes.
Mhm. And I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. My family loves me the way I allow them to love me where I am right now.
Yeah.
And that's what works for all of us. You know, I've formed a closeness with people recently that I view as more family than my own flesh and blood. Those are the bonds I cherish.
Yeah.
I told you, I didn't realize how much magnitude I had until Mother's Day of last year when I had phone calls and texts and emails and all of the things. And it never dawned on me, you know, how much I was able to do, not just for myself, but for others. You know, just people who what I see is just giving an answer to a question. And then, you know, you ask me for advice, I'll give it to you. I don't have shit else to do. You know, that's fine. But like you and how far you've come, because I remember when I first came in contact with the Queen of Shade and where we are now, I see so much of myself in you, be it in delivery, persona, drive, determination, dedication. I see that.
We're both Libras.
I see that. And it's nice to know that when my time has come to close an eye on this world and open it to the next, my legacy's in good hands.
Yes.
There are people that saw what I did, listened to what I had to say, and took notes. Even not in the music industry. I have a niece of mine. I'm not going to say how old she is, but she's a little on the older side. And we lost contact for so many years, and we just happened to stumble upon each other. How? You're going to love this. We did an interview with Buck Angel a while
Oh,
back.
wow. Yeah, I love Buck. Shout out to you, Buck. We love you.
Me and Buck go way back. And we reconnected because he was doing an Instagram live. She and I both were watching at the same time, and her name looked familiar. We struck up a conversation, and I realized this was my niece that I hadn't talked to in so long. And even just talking to her, she's a hardworking woman. She's in the top of her field. She's gotten to a point where she's comfortable with herself, which she struggled with for so many years. She's enjoying life, the people in it. I just could not be more proud of her and of you and of everyone who I know for a fact that I've had an impact on.
Yes, you have.
I focus on that.
Yeah.
That, to me, evens the score.
Yeah.
I might not have been able to reach everyone that I wanted to reach because I was like you. I wanted my brothers and my sisters to get help. I wanted my brothers and my sisters to tap into their gifts the way that I did. They don't want that. That's fine. For every one person that doesn't want help from me, there's 10 that do. And those are the ones that I cling to.
Yeah.
knowing that, because you're not going to reach everyone with your gift. You're not going to reach, and that's not just professional. While there are people who don't know who the Queen of Shade is and
Uh-huh.
the Queen of Queer Rock and Roll is, there are people that know Cyndi. There
Mhm.
are people that know Bjorn.
Mhm.
Listen to us.
Mhm.
And even if they don't receive it, they heard it.
Yeah.
You're getting it out there. That's what matters. You are doing what you were placed on this earth to do.
Yeah.
You are doing what you were called to do, what you were ordained to do. That's what matters. Regardless of the pain and the guilt and the survivor's guilt and all of that, you're just living. You cannot crucify yourself for living.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
I'm not giving up my life to be a martyr. I'm not a sacrifice. I love me too much now. I'm tired of that. I used to think I would be the family sacrificial lamb. I would make all the money and set everybody up and cleanse the bloodline from its filth and disdain. But why should I cleanse a bloodline from filth and disdain when the people that bloodied and dirtied it are still alive and still doing it?
All that's going to be is a waste of your time.
And a waste of my resources. No.
And those resources could be put to much better things.
Yeah.
You belong in Paris.
Yes.
Established this many, many times. You belong in Paris and you'll get there. Not by helping these niggas. You won't.
I love how you said that. That was so real. Not by helping these niggas.
Not with these niggas, you won't.
No, you won't. Right. Right. Giving them the keys to my chateau. Can you imagine them running in and out of my chateau while I'm away touring in Spain or something like that? Y'all eating up my food. Now this is a castle here. Y'all up here running up my light bills. No. No.
I love everybody in my family with every fiber of my being. My help is very finite and limited.
Yeah.
Because they ain't gonna get me or no they won't.
No.
They ain't gonna get you either because you're not gonna let them.
No. And you know, this, even how I feel, and even as I cried, this had to happen.
Otherwise, you would have clung to a false narrative of what you believed your brother to be. Part of the problem here, you believed he had more potential to be great than he did simply because he was smart and he was your brother.
Literally, my conscience says, bitch, you almost lost your life over an illusion. No more illusions about people.
And you were not wrong for having that delusion. Everybody likes to believe the best in people. He was your brother. Why wouldn't you believe that he would never hurt you? He's never given you a reason to think that before.
Right.
However, I believe everybody is capable of doing anything. And that's the way you have to carry people. Now, with some people in my life, I know for a fact they would never, ever, 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 ever put their hands on me, hurt me, belittle me, or any of that. However, just in case you do, I have a backup plan right here.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, we're not going to have to go in this back closet right here.
Right.
We're going to have to stay out in this front room. But just in case you think that I'm to be fucked with,
Right.
I'm very happy to remind you, I am not the 1, the 2, or the 3. So do not play with me.
Wait, my nephew, that was the first thing he grabbed, a fucking screwdriver. Why y'all trying to bloody somebody with a screwdriver?
I will poke the shit
That's
out
a
of you. With this
brutal way to
screwdriver.
die, mama. That's a brutal way to bleed out.
You sure I will poke the shit out of you. I'm telling
Ah.
you, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Ah.
Sometimes you have to. Now, you never plan on having to come out of the box on the people you care about, but you always keep something in mind just in case. In a perfect world, you'll never have to use a backup plan, but it should always be there. You let your guard down too much with your brother.
Yeah.
You didn't plan for the inevitable that one day he would snap on.
Yeah.
And with someone who is schizophrenic or schizoaffective or anything like that,
Yeah.
morals and reason are out the window.
Out the window.
There is no such thing as I would never do, I would never say, I would never be.
Whatever
Because
comes
it's
in my
not,
head.
it's not them that's forming these thoughts.
Yeah.
They might not ever do this,
Yeah.
We don't know who else is in here that would.
Who else is in there? Yeah. Yeah.
See, whereas they know better, there's somebody in the recesses of their mind who's willing to fuck around and find out.
Yeah. The renegade, the demon, basically.
And you cannot just assume that because you believe in your heart that you hold some level of sentiment to someone,
Yeah.
that you're exempt from a lash out.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. It does not always work that way. Now, in some cases it does, but most of the time it does not work that way.
Yeah.
Nobody is exempt from somebody else's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Because, even in my mania, I had a regard for human life. I'm not a sociopath. I don't want to live in the world alone and be by myself and lay the world to rest and waste and be the only thing alive. I'm not a sociopath. And I have 2 siblings that I know for a fact, my brother and my youngest sister, that are sociopathic.
And for people that aren't, they don't want to live in a world like that because the logical part of their brain kicks in to tell them the world cannot feasibly exist with just you on it.
No.
You alone don't have the resources to make the world go round. When you're a sociopath, you believe you are the reincarnation of God.
That's what he would always say. That's what he would say.
They believe they can be anything, do anything,
He would say,
know anything.
He would say, I am the absolute. He would say that all the time to himself when he was alone. I am the absolute. Crazy.
And of course, if a logical thinking person were to say that, no, fuck, you're not.
Right?
What? What? but but to someone with that affliction, you can't tell them that because they wholeheartedly believe, and it might not even be them. Somebody in here believes that to be true.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're talking to, so you don't know whether or not you are able to talk them out of it. So when you would tell them, I can handle it, I know how to deal with him, how do you know you were dealing with him to begin with?
Right.
You don't know who them niggas are up here or what they're capable of. I am 100% certain it was not your brother that tried to kill you.
Right.
He was just the vessel that executed that act. It was not your brother that tried to kill you, but it is your brother that got served at restraining order.
Yes. And that's the thing. That's, it's so crazy because I say that to the divine all the time. I say to the divine, you did all this amazing work. You built this amazing brand. You gave me all this amazing music that I did not spend hours upon hours trying to literally write and sing. I literally heard it. And you said, write this down, record this. You made this beautiful, beautiful human being. You said, wear this and wear that. Just even tonight, wear this, wear that, wear your hair like this. Everything was beyond me. And then you turn around and I say this, it's like being in a Broadway play. You do all of this stuff before the curtains come up, and the divine did all this beautiful stuff. And then it makes me want to cry because then you turn around and right before the curtains open and the lights go on, the divine runs over to you and hands you the mic and says, knock 'em dead. And you done did everything for me. And literally, as the curtains come up, I'm not even looking at the audience. I'm watching the divine walk off to the stage, exit stage left, look back at me and wink and say, you got this. And I know I didn't do it myself. That's where I live. This ain't me. This ain't me. You can't tell me the divine didn't do all this. All I was obedient. I just did what I was told. Mm-hmm.
Doing what you were told saved you and your grandmother's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
After that moment and hearing you talk about that for the past 3 hours now.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell me there's no such thing as God.
Right.
No one can tell me that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Child, it's been 3 hours. I don't want Zoom to cut us off. All right. So now I got to ask you questions just so we can wrap this. In your crisis work, when you spoke to people on the line that have been dealing with suicide and domestic violence and things of that nature, what would you say to those people that may not quite be there, like, I need help, but they're starting to be like, well, maybe I need to talk to somebody? What would you say to those people watching?
I always followed a similar format with every call. The first thing I would do is thank you for taking the time to talk to, of all people, me about what's going on, because you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to talk to somebody. You especially didn't have to talk to me. But something in you compelled you to come and get help. And I thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
I always start with that. Then I like to try at least to hear it and place myself in it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just hear it and then tell you what they think you want to hear, or what they think is best. Mm-mm. Either I've already lived it, or I'm a damn good empath and can put myself in it and tell you, okay, I'm seeing it now. This is what I would do. This is where I would take it, how I would go, what I would do, all of this. I'm going to give it to you from as first person of view as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you're more likely to retain the information I'm giving.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest takeaway that I always want to give people, self-satisfaction is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose to enjoy life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only exception to that is if you are genuinely in a position where you have absolutely no means of joy,
Mm-hmm.
which is the case for a lot of people. However, when most people are at that uphill phase where they're like, maybe I should talk to someone, 9 times out of 10, it's not at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very easy to lose sight of the good things in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to do that. And a lot of people, they just, life is hard right now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes you forget there is a light at the end of the tunnel because you've been walking it for so long.
Yeah.
But sometimes all a person really needs is somebody who has no ties to the situation at all to just tell them it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I heard what you said. I've listened to what you said, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I could get through it and be okay, so can you. I've dealt with so much in my life. Like I said, abuse, neglect, all of that. There was a time where I literally lost my mind.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest things to find when you lose it is yourself.
Yeah.
It took me years to get back to this right here.
Yeah.
I had no idea who this woman in this box was.
Yeah.
I had never met her in my life.
Yeah.
When I was in that moment.
Yeah.
I had been her, but once she left, I don't know who this woman is.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen her in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But when I found her, I promised her, I said, listen here, you old bitch.
Mm-hmm.
You're not leaving this house no more.
Mm-hmm.
Now I let your punk ass roll the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I let your fuck ass live. You ain't gonna do this shit to me again.
Mm-hmm.
Put your ass in there and go lay down. And she's living
Mm-hmm.
in that closet right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What? Oh, okay. Anyway. You said something in there. And sometimes, you just have to see things that way. Me personally, I like to use humor.
Yeah.
Humor is always my favorite way to, it's my favorite way to deal with things.
Yeah.
Remember a couple years ago, a friend of mine passed away. We were very, very close, and I was absolutely devastated.
Mm.
And what snapped me out of it one day, I was just sitting on my bed looking at pictures of it, and I was thinking, he said, I don't have to give her back that $20 I borrowed.
Oh, right. Something real.
Immediately felt a lot better.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to laugh at things, Hey, so what? Your brother tried to kill you.
Oh!
fuck it, you know.
He won't be the first and he wasn't the first and it won't be the last.
And it won't be exactly. At least he put up a good fight.
Lord,
At least he put up a good fight. Hey, that was a workout.
all my life I had to fight.
You can't say that wasn't a damn good workout.
Oh, honey. Oh, honey.
That
Oh,
was some of
honey.
the best cardio you ever did in your life.
Lord, honey. Lord, I tore my Mama, I tore my bathroom up. I tore my bath. Like, I didn't care about nothing at that point. Like, it literally, like, it was like my spirit knew without knowing, this is for real. This is for real. This is for real. And I kept him from getting away from me so that he wouldn't grab a weapon. Like, I kept him close to me so that he couldn't grab anything. You gonna fight me flat-footed, barefooted, and knuckle. Like, you're not gonna get away from me running that room and grab something. And no, you're not doing that. You're not doing that. And you know, I did messages after that, but this sent a message, not just to the universe, but to all of my haters. You think you're gonna take me out? You got the wrong bitch. You got the wrong bitch. You got.
If you ask me, this built character.
Yup, I was gonna say, because this bitch loves herself enough to fight for her life. I never even knew that about myself.
Well,
I never thought that
I learned something new every day.
I never thought that I loved myself that much enough to do that, to where I'd fight someone whom I would die for over me.
If anything, this would make me immune to criticism. You think your little comments and your naysays hurt me? My brother tried to kill me, and I'm still
Mama! Here. Mama!
Me and this nigga came out of the same human being, and he tried to murder me.
Right, but that's what it does. It's like, bitch, you ain't nothing. My brother tried to kill me. You ain't nothing. It did do that. It's like, oh, like, but and that's so crazy because that's exactly how I felt inside. It was like, bitch, if he did that, bitch, none of y'all going, no,
My flesh and blood tried to kill me, and I'm still fine. I am Superman. Fuck y'all.
Wonder Woman.
Y'all ain't worth a damn right now.
Oh, you always make me laugh.
What the Bible say, I feel like running through troops and leaping over walls.
Oh, but you know what else? I pity the entities that try to harm me now. Because if I did that to somebody I adored, you know who I'm speaking about. It's a different kind of fight now. It's the old bitch. Before I was fighting, but I wasn't fighting. Now,
These were just love taps beforehand.
Now,
I really want to hit you because I like you a little bit, but
now.
And do you notice a theme here? I'm actually just thinking about that. You notice how everything negative that tries to happen to you never comes at you directly and head on. It always has to go through a third party, which is having somebody else do this shit to you.
Yeah.
Me personally, I believe wholeheartedly in spirits and energy and whatnot. I don't have time for a punk ass spirit. You can't even fight me directly. You're gonna use my fucking brother. You're gonna use Raymond.
Yep.
You're gonna use Raymond, bitch.
The person I love the most.
And you knew that was gonna fuck me up. That's bitch ass shit.
Yeah.
That's because what was expected of you was to let your emotions overcharge. Well, I can't hurt my brother. I don't want to hurt my brother.
Something switched inside of me. I said, oh no. Oh no. No. And you know, I'm not even going to hold you. I thought about my followers. I thought about all the people that uplift me. I thought about all the people that write me and say, thank you so much for what you do for me. I never thought about that before. When you said earlier, you don't recognize, I thought about all these people whom I do things for them and they genuinely think I'm wonderful. Not perfect, but wonderful in what I do. I thought about all of them. I said, oh, no. I can't be no martyr. I can't be no martyr. I'm not. And that's one thing I also realized. I'm not a Jesus. Y'all not going to take me to the cross and think I'm going to stay up there and let y'all crucify me. No, 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 no. Mm-mm.
Mhm.
I'm a phoenix. I'm going to burn all of y'all before you get to me. All of y'all.
Mhm.
I will kill all of you before you kill me.
Sometimes you have to almost lose your life to really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it did. It made it like literally, like today, even when you said it's like, bitch, you're gonna live in Europe. Like you're gonna be so far on the other side of money and success. The world is not even gonna believe you have brothers and sisters. They're gonna come forward and the world gonna say, stop lying. You ain't no kind of kin to her. No, not her. She don't claim you, we don't claim you. And I've been refusing to allow that sort of happiness and greatness to enter my life. I've been trying to keep myself small, even in this, staying in this little box, in this little room. And then I realized, I said to my grandmother, prepare to move. We got to get out of here. I gotta get out of here. Too much has happened in here now. I done almost died in this house. It's time to go. We can't stay here. We can't stay here.
Way too much in the negativity in the house, and it will stick to you.
Yeah, I said we got to get out of here now.
Oh.
So I said prepare. So the salvage what you want to keep, but you can't keep it all. No, because we got to go now. Nope, can't stay here.
The push y'all needed.
Yup, it was. It literally was. I said, oh no.
Push you all needed to go on to the next level. Now, granted, you didn't necessarily have to almost die.
Right.
But we here now. So
right. We're here now and we still alive.
You know.
Scarred up, but it'll heal.
You know, we here now and you still got your throat. Everything's all right.
Right. I can still sing.
You know,
still talk.
Yeah, you still swallow. Everything's all right. You still swallow.
Yep.
Which might come in handy if you go to Paris and take one of them off and switch. You
right.
Still swallow.
Right.
Things all right.
Right.
All in all, this was a traumatic experience. It's
yes.
not even, let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
But you learned from it and you can draw from it.
Yeah.
You learn from it, you can draw from it. Yeah. That's just one less person you have to worry. I'm glad this happened now.
Yeah.
Instead of later on down the line.
Exactly.
Imagine if this had happened when you let him live in your house and it was just you and him.
Oh. And that's how I was planning it.
Mm-hmm. This needed to happen now, where y'all was in front of some people that could have called the proper authorities.
Yeah. But I feel stronger because I feel capable of protecting my own life. I'm capable of protecting my own life. There's a confidence that came with that. Knowing, oh, honey, the cops gonna come. I'm gonna whoop your ass till they get here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He was screaming, call the police. He was screaming that. He went from, I'm gonna kill you fucking faggot and that bitch downstairs to call the police. Because I was whipping on his ass. Oh, yes, I was. I was fighting for our lives. Not just mine, hers. Because he was going downstairs next. If I had been an old lightweight, he'd have dispatched me and went down there and dispatched her. No. No, you won't. Not here. Not hardly.
Now that you fought for your life, don't
my
ever think it has no value ever again.
There you go.
If it didn't have value before, it does now.
It does now.
Fought for it.
I fought for it.
In that moment, you earned your right.
I earned my life. Just like I earned all this.
You have now officially earned everything you have, including the breath in your body.
Yeah.
License and trademark that next.
Yeah, right.
I'm waiting for you to start incorporating. I'll pay for that shit. Well, where do I sign?
Breath of Life Incorporated.
There you go. I will pay good money for that.
Let me write that down.
Breath of Life Incorporated.
Let me write that down. Oh, come on.
I'll give you everything I have for that shit.
Right? Say, I give you all my money.
You can have my money. You can have my car.
Right? Breath of Life. Hold on. I ain't even gotta do that. Hold on.
Breath of Life Incorporated. There we go. Make it easy.
There you go. Now you just got to think about what that's going to encompass, and then you do it.
Right? Right? I'll fill in the particular, what they say, we'll fill in the bylaws as it comes.
We'll get them in. We'll settle them in and settle them down.
We'll get the bylaws together.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say thank you to you. I couldn't think of, like literally spirit was like no one else. Mama Cyndi, Mama Cyndi. And we, not only have we been talking for almost 4 hours, but we helped, you helped me, you lifted a cloud. I feel my feelings again. In that cry, I felt them released because you said the truth. You said, you're not responsible for them. I was parentified as a child. I almost died at, I want to say 6 or 7 years old. I was stealing lunches from school before my grandmother stepped in to feed my brothers and sisters because my mother was on drugs. So I was stealing lunches from school, extra lunches to feed them, and not taking and eating any of the food for myself. So I was severely malnourished and almost died. I had to go into the hospital and receive, IVs and food through the, intravenously and things like that. And I was very sick. And my grandmother, that's what got my grandmother involved. She like, what the hell is going on in that house? And she came and whooped my mother's ass, literally. There was a court date, and the judge told her, ma'am, next time, because she brought my aunt, my uncle, and her husband at that time. The judge told her, ma'am, next time you whoop your daughter's ass, don't let nobody be present to see it. Because my mom had some guy who molested my sister. I didn't even know that was happening in the house that was happening. He was there, and he was a witness to my grandmother reaching over him in the bed and grabbing my mama by her hair and whooping my mama ass in the house. Oh yeah, my grandmother was a thing when she was young. My mama always fought her. It was crazy. But then my grandmother stepped in and I was gone. And for a long time, I felt guilty because my grandmother only took me. My brothers and sisters were left there. My grandmother only took me.
That's a lot. That's very comparable to what's happening now. She took you because you were malnourished. You weren't being given enough by the people that should have been giving to you. You had to be given what you needed by outside means because you were so busy giving to other people. So someone had to step in and give.
Look at the same problem. I'm 40. I'll be 40 in September. It's the same problem. Look at that, what we just unearthed.
I'll tell you what else we unearthed. This shit won't happen the third time.
Oh, no.
Not thrice.
Nope.
Not thrice.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
That's it. That's why I said what I said. I don't want to deal with nobody. Nope. Mental illness. Nope. No.
If you are not properly medicated, walk away from me.
But you see, people don't walk around with their papers. I need papers now because I come with papers. I got my AKC papers. I'm Hound Dog Incorporated, honey. I got all my American Kennel Club. I got all my shots.
Hand them over.
I need all your you a cat. I need your Cat Fanciers Association papers. I need to see all that's going on.
They better be signed. I'm not
Yeah. I'm checking dates of signatures and everything. I don't want you giving me no outdated paperwork. Nope.
And that's a valid boundary to have. You don't have to deal with people that do not have the same thing. You're at a point where you need like-minded energy.
Yes.
You need like-minded energy because like minds get shit done.
Yes.
You're not going to get shit done if you're spending so much time trying to iron out your differences and figure out a way to coexist before you can start getting shit done. This is time that could have been spent already getting shit done if you knew what the fuck you were supposed to do.
Yes.
You need like-minded people around you. And that's why you gravitate towards people like me. Why you and your nephew are so close. Things like that. Why you and your grandmother are okay some of the days.
Some days.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because as long as she learned to throw some shit away, y'all will be good.
Right? We'll be real good.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
What they say, one day at a time. We'll get there.
One box at a time. We'll get there.
Yeah. I want to say thank you. Let's end this because I don't know how long you two gonna let me put it up. I might have to make it a two-parter.
I might have to make it a two. I gotta go and see like how long they'll let you put it, because this is like 4 hours.
It should be fine.
It was so needed though. It was so, and you know what? You see, this is how I know. See, people always say, you know, I love your style. I love your style. I love your style. But they don't understand that I've taken from people that inspired me, because you did what I do and I got it from you. You let me tell my story. You didn't interrupt me. And that's what I do. I'll let them tell their stories and listen. And that's that most of all, it proved like that you knew, have worked and done this work, because you just listened like it was on the phone. You just listened. And
I sat here silently. I didn't even light this cigarette till you finished talking.
And then when it was your turn, you hit me, made me cry the ugly cry and everything. You hit me hard, honey. It's like, look here, you got to leave Ike Turner. You got to leave him. You got to leave him. This is it. How long you gonna let him beat your ass, Anime? How long? How long? It's time to go. This is the part of the movie where you get away.
One round was enough. One round was enough.
Yup, you let me, this is what you did. You said, okay, this is the part of the movie where you get away. Okay. You never look back from here. You go blow up in Europe. What's love got to do with it? You know the rest.
Everything will be fine.
Right?
But you gotta get the fuck out first.
Yes, gotta get the fuck out. Get out. Like that movie, running. Get out. Like that movie, get out. Bitch, get out. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Let's end this so I can check and make sure it'll upload and I don't have to do a two-parter. Thank you so much for being my mom, my counselor, my therapist, my psychiatrist, everything, like my evangelist, my prophetess. You was everything tonight. You were everything tonight. You said exactly what needed to be said and let me go through all the gambit of my emotions and then figured out where they were and snatched them back into this soul. Say, okay, he can stay, that ground, he can stay dead over there, but your feelings, you need those. So let's take them back. Don't bury them with the memory of your brother. You need your feelings. And I really appreciate that.
I'm glad. I hope you hold on to it.
Oh, what you mean hold on to it? I'm gonna be talking to you. You gonna see, that's the one thing they don't know about these hotlines. You're gonna keep me accountable. Like, bitch, you still holding on to it? You got that?
I'll be checking.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't leave your feelings but back there, did you?
Nope. No, ma'am, I still have them. Yes, ma'am,
Right.
I have them. That literally, bitch, you got your feelings? Yes, ma'am, I got them. I got them. All right, ladies and gentlemen. If you are, I'm just want to say, if you are someone battling mental illness or dealing with someone that is battling mental illness, there's help out there. But you got to be willing. You got to be honest. And you've got to take action. Don't let your want to help someone be so great that you can't see who they are and end up almost losing your life, like I almost did. I love my brother, I do. I'm just done with him. And it's my life. I get to say who stays and who goes. I voted him off the island. But I would hope that all of you watching would get to the point of realizing when to throw in the towel before it gets really, really bad. Because, you know, some of us that are overachievers and high earners and all of that, perfectionists, we don't like to let go of something because what's floating around here too is a need to not fail. Let's just be honest. I wanted to help him and not fail at it. Sometimes failures happen. We're not perfect. We can't help everybody. We can't save everybody. Sometimes you have to fail, because if you don't, you could end up laying on a bathroom floor, being choked out by your brother or your husband or your father, boyfriend. Take accountability. Recognize your part, the part that you play, and bitch, get out. Okay? So, let's sign off. You have heard the vocal stylings of the Queen of Shade who spilled her guts.
with special guest, her mother, but the queen of queer rock and roll, Mother Cydni Ambivalent, on this day. And we love you. And we'll be back. Bye now. Don't go nowhere, Mama.
So did you enjoy? I hope you did. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and don't forget to cash at me at the Queen of Shade. I am your favorite content creator, right? Right. You want to see more of this content, right? Right. Cash at me. I love you. Mwah.
I've got my black stilettos on. Don't you make me take them off. I'm assuming first position. Gonna show you I'm a boss. I've been given 60 seconds just to put my thing down. I'll have you wanting my stilettos by the time I turn around.
Turn that TV down.